This is Kitten Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in his student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wade in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to ShowX on VtWProduction.com. You're listening live at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this Sunday, the 26th of January, 2020. How is everyone doing today? And we are joined, as always, by our good friend Ken. How are you, sir?
I am losing in League of Legends. So I'm a little annoyed. I get overly emotionally invested when I'm losing. So
See, reasons I do not try to play that game in anything but ARAM to keep myself from at any time, because I know I would not. It stresses me out still. So, but yes, I say that even though I had a bit of that even in ARAM yesterday. So there is that. But welcome to the show, Ken. Hopefully everything is going well for you today.
Yeah, things are okay. Like I said, I'm just really mad about. I get emotionally invested to the point of I want to uninstall. I hate the fact that people in League are so mean. I'm having a bad game. I'm playing as Caitlyn right now, and I'm 2-8.
Ooh, ouch.
And the volley bear in our team, who's doing quite well, keeps saying oh my god, our Caitlyn's failing us. Why are you doing this? You suck. Go off yourself. And I'm like,
those are some of the worst, because it's one of those things.
I just want to do good. I said to him, hey, I'm open to feedback, but all he wants to do is just be.
It's I'm trying, man. Sorry. What can I do?
I'm working as hard as I could here. You know.
Well, I'd say the comment I would make while dead would be something almost to the effect of, "It's amazing. I've been trying to channel all that you've been telling me with your, with all the negative comments, but for some reason it's not making me play any better. I don't understand." There's something where it's I've tried to take the negative feedback, negative reinforcement, and somehow it's just not channeling into better gameplay.
Weirdly enough,
dude.
It's almost as if we just lost, by the way.
Okay.
It's almost as if telling somebody mean things on your team doesn't actually make them better people and better players.
Right? It's weird.
Weirdly enough.
Weird. Yeah, that's always been something where I've never understood why you criticize someone on your team when it does look like they're at least trying. I understand when it openly looks like someone is feeding and doing something truly ridiculous in a game where you're like, hey, could you maybe please hang back behind the creeps or wait for the whole team to get here? Or you're not the tank?
I wasn't kidding when I said I'm really open to feedback. If somebody said to me, oh, dude, you need to build this instead of that, and maybe if you just try to hang behind where so-and-so is, like you're saying, yeah, totally open to that. But
people who just yell and scream, it's that doesn't help anything.
No,
and I truly believe that in most cases, right? Across the board, when it's not just here in gaming or something, but I talk about that when people try to have discussions about issues they care about, politics, whatever the case may be. When all you do is yell at the other side, it's you're not actually doing anything beneficial. You're venting at best. Most likely what you're doing is just encouraging the person to not change. You're encouraging the situation to say. Yeah. It's just kind of good job. That helped nothing.
I mean, it's just, I think emotions can be useful for guiding you and making you inspired and helping you, achieve things that you want to do. But they should be guiding, not not forcing your hand in specific directions. They're there as it's like a gut feeling. And it's fine to consider your feeling because it's usually based on some kind of some subconscious and past history of what that might mean. That's the whole purpose of our emotions, right? You shouldn't ignore them completely. That's just foolish. And if you hold them as the number one thing as well, that's also dumb. You should but you should consider them and consult them and take them as advice, not as the number one thing. But people tend to when they get angry in games, they're no, I am angry and therefore I must be I must channel this. That's the thing about anger. Any act that's done in anger does not make you feel better. You just feel worse.
At best, you're venting a little bit, which I have also talked to people at work and other things where I say venting does have a point where it's useful to get the initial spike of emotion out and under control. However, it's usually not best led to deal with the individual that it is an issue with, as well as it's usually not a way to actually get beyond this situation. It's one to get the vent out, and then recenter, and then actually look at what it takes to address whatever the issue is. That's
Absolutely.
positive and constructive. Anyhow, sucks that you lost. Sucks that it was a poor experience. Good that you're ready for the show now.
The problem is, right? I don't know why, but do you remember a month ago when things were great, and for some reason I was doing absolutely fine with League of Legends. I got into Silver 4, the best I've ever done, and everything was good and happy. Well, for some reason, this new season, I got put into Bronze 4, which is already a bit of a slap in the face after being Silver 4 last season. But I've been on this horrible losing streak, and a large part of it is because I have never. I'm playing with people who are in Bronze as well, right? Like, so I'm going to be in the same, tier as them because it means that they're going to be worse as well. So when you're playing support, you end up supporting a team who suck. And that's why I decided to try doing ADC, but I'm not good with ADC. I've never claimed to be good at it. I'd say I'm a silver player when it comes to support. But man, I'm not very good at the other roles. I can play if I'm very good at snowballing, right? If I'm playing ADC, jungle, top, mid, whatever, and if I'm ahead, I can stay ahead. I'm very aggressive. My problem is I'm really bad at pumping the brakes, and if I'm behind, I'll just die all the time. I'll just die more and more and more, and I keep feeding. So my number one thing is to, either try to snowball at the start, and if that fails, I just gotta learn to hug towers and stand back, and that's the best I can do with these other rules. But I have no way to climb the ladder with support because no matter how good I do, I'm playing with people who are my level of ADC, right? And I'm bad at ADC. So no matter how good your support is, they're not going to help anyway.
It's a challenge. It is a challenge. No, I hear you, man. And it's one of those things, again, why I can't do it. It's struggles to sit there and be able to, because there's so much pressure, I think, in trying to perform in those games compared to, for me, an ARAM or some of the other modes. So I can only imagine, but yes,
that's the thing. I'm trying to be very stoic about it and recognize that but the only person putting pressure on me is me, right? It's just a game. Just because they put the word ranked next to it doesn't actually mean anything, right? It's only for my own benefit. And if I'm not enjoying it, I shouldn't be playing it. And so why am I letting myself get so flustered over some stupid video game when I just want to have some fun?
There's something to be said about that.
To relax and have fun. Why am I doing this? Why'd I get so flustered? Anyway, to answer your very original question, things are well. Thank you for asking. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. It's happy to be starting another week with the show. It's actually one of the nice things. It's both the close of the weekend for me and the beginning of the next week of responsible things and such. And so it is not I won't say bittersweet, but it's kind of one of my gauges or stages within each of my weeks when it comes to the show, where it's yeah, it's showtime, so I got this. All right. As people are also seeing, I'm playing around trying to find the right position for the kitty cam.
I prefer it being on the right hand side there because you can see the chat bar.
Yeah. I figure I'll just corner it up there and make it a little smaller so you can see whenever Tetra's hanging out in her favorite spot in my office as player 2, essentially. So leaving it in for there. But yeah, but with that, let's go ahead and get things started with that being a benchmark for the show this week with a little bit of
Dysfunctional Deviations.
So since you're off the game and ready to participate today, Ken, what have you been doing that has been less than geek this week?
Well, sir, as I fix my microphone because I accidentally opened Twitch there and heard myself and sounded very echoey, so I'm trying to fix that. Any sound feedback is always welcome, guys. Not just in terms of the feedback being sound, but feedback about sound as well.
Yeah.
If this is too loud, too echoey, etc., let me know. I'm trying to do what I can with the sound panels and such, but there is still an issue. Right. So how are things? I think this will be hopefully be the final dog report. They have not fought in the past week.
Awesome.
So last week I mentioned that we got Brutus a cage. So he's now we're trying to train him. And the problem is that online it says, the first day you should give them 10 minutes in the cage and keep rewarding them profusely for being in there with really nice food and high quality food. You put all their toys in there and a nice blanket they'll associate with it. You try and make them sleep in there at night and all this. We followed all the advice that we can, including the training and the treats and the sleeping in there at night. The difficulty is that it says that over the weeks you need to, go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 20 minutes to half an hour to an hour, and you slowly build up over the weeks. But with Kitten starting her new job, she got which is very good for her, and I'm very proud of her. She got this job so quickly. Like as soon as the email went out inquiring, she had the interview and been given the job within 24 hours, which was great.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a 15-hour temp job. But after her first day, they said, "You're much more skilled than we expected somebody to fill this position with. We would like to give you more hours. Can you immediately go up to 30 hours?" So now, straight away, she's gone up to 30 hours a week, and I think they want her to go up to 40 next.
Wow.
That one's pending interview and pending offer for interview. So she's and it's going to be full time if that all goes well.
That's I mean, hopefully that means it's in a way you're hoping that you wanted.
Oh, I am absolutely. I'm hoping it's fantastic news, and I'm certainly hoping so. I mean, it's got its ups and downs. I mean, she's really enjoying the job, so she'll be happy with the additional hours. I think it's a great opportunity for her. But she's also been doing a lot of writing. She's been really enjoying writing literature, and it's a bit. She's actually 3-4 chapters, I think, into her book. So she's writing. I don't want to spoil. I don't know if I'm even allowed to speak about it. But she's writing a fictional fairy tale type book. She did an English literature degree and has always wanted to write a book or a novel. And she says, "Hey, why not? I'm going to do it now." And the plan was that she was going to have a part-time job and then spend the rest of her time writing this book. But now it seems like it's gone from, I applied for a part-time job and suddenly it's going into full-time, which is good for many, many purposes. I mean, it's good for her that she's wanted, and it says good things about her and her skill set and how much her employer likes her. That's all great stuff. It just means she does have less time for writing.
Well, hopefully she might have an opportunity, if it's something that's still being worked out and offered, that maybe she can manage it to say, like, maybe she's not forced a 40-hour, but preferably a 40-hour, but give her some flexibility. Who knows? Whatever works best for you guys, right? Whether
we're
40 hours and benefits or, flexibility and less, I don't know. That's for each family to figure out.
Right, I mean, like the health benefits and stuff is covered by my job anyway, so it's not a big deal. I mean, that'd be a nice additional, I guess. But it's really not the biggest deal. The thing that we're more concerned about is, we're taking the approach of whatever comes, we'll take, right? So if they offer more hours, she'll take it. If she sticks with part time, she'll be happy with that too. It just means the writing will be a bit slower. That's all, and it also means less pressure, right? It means that if you're given 10 hours in a day to write, you feel like you have to write for 10 hours. If you only got 2 hours, that doesn't feel like such an amount of pressure. It's more manageable, I think. But it really depends on how she's feeling and how things go. We'll see. But back to the original topic, which was now that she's working all these hours, Brutus with his new dog cage has had to go from, instead of this very slow introduction, he had to go from 0 to max. So he's been going from, now Kitten starts work at 10 a.m. So she needs to be out the house for 9:30, and I tried to leave a little bit early, so I get back for 5, and that's me cutting a little bit of a corner there. I'm skipping lunch so I can do this, right? And so he's alone for about 7 hours or so, which is a long time for dogs to be alone anyway. Even back in Scotland, I used to drive home every lunchtime and walk them, so they wouldn't be home alone that long. So it's not ideal for the dogs. And I think once we start actually receiving the first paycheck from Kitten's job, we'll have to consider maybe getting a dog walker or something and trying to measure how worth all this, how we're going to do all this. But Brady's been the problem is he's never had separation anxiety in any major form. And I think the reason for it is, in our previous place, he had a 3-bedroom house to explore and roam and, feel like he had his own space. He had multiple couches and beds that he could lie upon. And so it was comfortable, and he'd look out the window and watch for us. Here, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, so it's 1 floor, and the square footage is about a bit less than half of what we used to have.
Oh, gotcha.
And plus certain rooms are closed because we can't let them in for their own safety. So they've got very little room in the first place, which I think is why they started fighting. And now Bruty is being put in a cage in a single room, and that room is now being closed to keep the other dog away. I think he's feeling separation anxiety and boredom and probably some kind of terror of being locked inside a cage. Right? It's scary. Um, and so we've realized that, God, it's horrible to say, but after 5 minutes of us being out of the house, he's howling.
Gotcha.
And we live in an apartment block, right? This is, I mean, it's students, so most of them are out during the day. And like I said, we're trying to do everything we can to minimize it. We're taking them for long walks. We're giving them treats filled with food. Like we get the dog Kongs that you get. We're filling with peanut butter and biscuits and stuff. And that distracts them for about half an hour. So that's been helping. But yeah, when I come home, I'm walking down the street and I hear howls and it's not good. I'm like, shoot, what did I do?
That's a challenge. Yeah.
But everything we've been reading online, we're following all the advice we can. We're doing everything that we possibly can while maintaining our jobs. What I'm planning to do before work tomorrow is I'm going to write a little note to all the neighbors that are within, one nearby block, and just saying, look, our dog's been crate trained. I'm really sorry. It's going to take a little bit of time. I apologize for the noise. So we've got two approaches. One is what the online advice says from all the professionals. They say crate training takes time. If there's separation anxiety, they'll eventually get used to it. It's just time. So that's part of it, but that still doesn't help our neighbors, right? For the next couple of weeks, that's still not great for them. That's going to suck. The second option is, well, we're stuck in a lease until later this year, until the end of this year, really. So that's pretty poor timing for all this to kick off. And we're not about to get rid of our dogs. That's not viable. They're our family. We can't do that. So the other option is, if there are noise complaints, which I think there will eventually be, I'm going to go talk to the leasing office and say, we will happily move out if you break our lease. If
they don't penalize you.
If you don't penalize us, we will happily leave and go elsewhere and not be a burden. But we can't take up the financial responsibility of two places, right? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm hoping they'll have some compassion for our situation. I mean, I realize that we're being the douchey neighbors in some respects for having noisy dogs, right?
Yeah.
But I think people, again, we would just require a bit of compassion, because I think most people would realize that we've had these dogs for 5 years, 3 and 5 years, and they've never been a problem. We had no idea this is going to arise, and we thought everything was going to be fine. It's just been a perfect storm of problems that came together, and I feel really bad that my neighbors are the ones who are having to pay for it in some respects. So I'm hoping they'll have some compassion to us, and I'm hoping that if we apologize and communicate with them, they'll understand.
Make it a little easier in general.
Yeah, so we're hoping for this to turn out okay, this next challenge. But hey, at least it's not the dogs ripping each other apart, which was the previous problem. I mean, we could just let them out of the crate and the howling would stop, but we might come home to 2 dead dogs. So sadly, this is the preferred approach.
Oh yeah, no, it's hopefully transitional. Hopefully something that will become better over time, like you said. But understandably, it is difficult now, as things are starting off and figuring it out, and it's all new. That is always going to be a challenge.
Absolutely, and it's like we said in the chat there. Tom Bagger said they ain't going to let you break anything. Sorry, lol. Well, that's the thing. It's the way that this is university, not actually owned by the university, but it's student accommodation by an external company. And the way it works here is they generally have 1 year long leases. And right now they're going through a phase of emailing everybody here saying, hey, do you want to renew? Do you want to renew next year? Hey. They're trying their hardest, right? If people are saying, getting these emails thinking, do I want to stay another year? And then they hear a dog howling all day, they might think, maybe not. I don't want to be living next to a bunch of noisy people. So I'm hoping that in the interest of them trying to retain other leasers, it might be wise for them to consider letting us break our lease. Right? That's kind of the way I'm thinking of it. I think if we propose it and communicate to them and say, look, it's good for us. I think it's good for you if we let us break our lease. Maybe we can get out early and go find a standalone, unterraced house.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Anyway, that's all what's going on with the dogs. Thank you all for entertaining me talking about myself and my family. Speaking of my mother, my mum, as was referenced in the chat, has been and gone. I'm sad to say. We loved having her here, and it was really nice to see her. But she had to return back to Scotland. And we had some bad news a couple times when she was here. Once we had the dogs fight, and so we thought we were losing Tank, like we mentioned last week, and so that was horrible, and it really put a damper on the weekend. And then on the second day, since Kitten is not nearby, I'll say it. We had a friend who lost a cat the day after all that stuff with Tank happened.
Yeesh.
And we knew that cat the whole time we were like. This is one of Kitten's best friends, probably her best. Oh, it is her best friend back in Scotland. And Kitten saw this cat almost every single day for the whole time it was with her best friend. And well, put it this way: they got a second cat 6 months ago, and they named it Bearcat after me and Kitten. Right, so that's how close we are with them. And when she lost that cat, I got hit by a car. Completely, and they found it as well, which is even sadder. Like they saw. So yeah, it was very sad, and Kitten was just distraught because she loved that cat like her own. And straight after the news about Tank potentially us losing our dog, it was just such a hard weekend. So I felt really sorry for my mum being here during all that. It was pretty awkward for her, I think, that she was here during all that sorrow. So I'm sad that she's not here, but I think she's probably glad in some respects to not be either, because it was a difficult weekend. But and the one other kind of downer that we had was, I don't know if I should even mention this, but it's probably not good for my career, but I'm going to say it anyway because I don't think it's a big deal. Happens to everybody. I was driving my mother to the airport, and I got a speeding ticket.
Oh, that's not a big deal.
I thought it was kind of a bit BS because, yeah, I was speeding, right? I wasn't bad, right? I was slightly over the limit, but I was just following the traffic. Yeah, I don't know why I got singled out. I feel like the cop was just thinking like, oh, that looks like a rental, or that's an out-of-state plate, or something. So he pulled me over with my mum next to me in the passenger seat, and he asked for my license, registration, and everything. And when we were getting stopped, I said to my mom, like, okay, keep your hands on your thighs, don't move, make no sudden movements, be very respectful, call him sir, and don't get out of the car wherever you do unless he tells you to. But because I know what the cops are like here, right? This guy was all right, he was fine, but you never know who you're going to get.
Well,
right?
I was going to ask, is this your first interaction essentially with a traffic cop or a traffic situation in the U.S.?
In the U.S., yes.
Because there is a challenge, or there's two sides, I would say. One, to the perception of how things happen here in the States versus sometimes the reality. And it's unfortunate because they're often linked very closely.
Yes.
And I have talked about in many times how it's unfortunate, but I maintain more often than not a preference to not interact with any police officers anytime ever. I feel like it just will make life easier in general to not have that concern. And I know a lot of people think, well, that's not necessarily fair. Not every cop is bad. And I agree. It's not. But in most cases, especially the more I've seen things, the more I've had to think about situations and stuff going forward, the more I'm concerned with how much a negative interaction with a cop could go, how bad it could get.
It's the poison Skittle analogy, right? It's the case of you got a bowl of Skittles or your favorite, small candy, and there's loads of them. And yeah, 99% of them are fine, but one of them is poisoned and will kill you. Are you really going to eat any? I mean, it's not about the fact that, most of them are fine. Yeah, of course it's fine. It's the fact that you might have an interaction that will kill you. Yeah. And that's kind of the scary thing with police here is, yeah, I think most of the time, most police are fine. Most police are somewhat sufficiently trained, I think. I from what I've seen and I've talked to some police officers from the US in the past, and even they have said that they don't get enough training, right? And there's also the problem of, well, if you look at the stats, the number of people who are killed by police here is insane compared to any other country in the world. It's mad. So, and I get it for the police perspective as well. I mean, if you're undertrained, you have a firearm, and you work in an area, for example, near Detroit, where I got stopped, where there's a good chance that the person you're stopping is going to have an illegal firearm and fire upon you, you're going to feel antsy. You're going to be ready to, you'll have your hand over your firearm just in case. I get it. I understand. But I don't want to be stopped, right? And I don't want to talk to them. And I said after this happened, I was like, I may have been following traffic. I may have been singled out. It doesn't really matter. In the end, I was technically speeding. It's my own fault. I can only be stoic about these things. So in the future, I will just make sure that I am at maximum 70, maybe on 65, and that way I will not be stopped. Right? You can't get me for that if I am absolutely not speeding. Why put myself in that danger zone? And the other thing he stopped me for was he looked at my license and registration, which is a British driving license. I was told at orientation at my university, I was allowed to drive for 6 months here with my British license.
Okay.
Because visitors are allowed to, and because I'm a non-immigrant visitor, as is my official visa title, right? It should be fine. No, it turns out that as soon as you have an address in the US, you are required to have this is for the police officer and what I read online.
Okay, I was gonna say, I always recommend when you get a stop from a police officer to check what the actual statutes are, because an unfortunate but real thing that happens is that many police officers like to believe they understand all the laws and sometimes do not. There's a lot of famous videos out there about police officers trying to get people for how they felt a law should exist versus what the actual law states. And so
I've seen a few videos of like lawyers getting stopped, and it's
lawyers
quite funny,
getting stopped.
They're like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah,
you know? It's like, factually, I know you're wrong. But in the end, so long as you're respectful to the police officer, and to be honest, I would rather agree and nod and say yes to whatever the police officer says, and then later refute it in a court if I had to, because you don't want to mess with the guy with a gun on his side. You just don't.
Well, and that's again an unfortunate piece of what it's like now, and that's why I'm very curious. Hando is asking in general whether the police officer was a local cop or a state patrol officer.
I believe he was local. It looked local to me. He didn't look like a state trooper. And so, he was sitting on the side of the highway with a little speed camera thing, and he followed me out and stopped me and everything, and it was fine. So I got done on 2 accounts. One was speeding, and one was for having the wrong address on my license, which apparently, from what I've seen online, is actually him being nice to me. He could have actually said, I have no right to drive here whatsoever, and I'm driving illegally, and I could have gone to jail. According to that.
Still would argue with that because there's a whole time frame for all of that, and so... And here's the reason. Now, here's the thing, because I got to double check. I could find out more about at least how it is in Colorado, because I have friends who come over for work at 2 to 3 year intervals, and they do end up getting Colorado licenses, but I forget what their time range is before they have to get it, because they don't have to get it right away. There is some kind of
here it just says if you have an address. So because I have an address, that's that.
That is
the one way around it
interpretation, but yes.
I know, and the thing is, I'm definitely.
I know.
But I know a lot of people in my. I'm not going to say that. I want to say a lot of people that I know at the university who are in similar status as me, visa-wise, who have been driving for years here and still don't have a license and have been stopped by the police, and it's been fine. And the reason for it is because when the police ask you, "What are you doing here?" if you say you're visiting, you're perfectly entitled to say that. Because legally speaking, in the U.S., as it turns out, due to protection for non-documented immigrants, you don't have to say that you're an immigrant. I can just say that I'm visiting, and I don't have to provide any documentation to prove it because of the law protecting them. Technically, not all police are going to follow that, right? Like they might force you to give the documentation over, and so on. But all I gave was my British license. He didn't ask for my visa documentation, right? So I could have said to him, and it wouldn't. It's just that I'm a visitor, and I would only got one of those charges, the speeding, and not the other one. But because I said to him, this is a rental, I stay here. I told him the truth, which apparently was the foolish thing to do.
Well, every lawyer, and I don't know how you've seen these, will say, don't talk to cops. Yeah. Almost every actual lawyer will say, don't talk to cops, even prosecution and stuff like that, because they tend to tell you that they are going to do anything they can to trap you to make their job easier. And so the recommended advice from most anyone, including ex-cops, have said, just don't talk to them. Give the least amount of information you need to get out of the situation and move on.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, because I don't have a license, I couldn't get any points on my license, so that's fine. Which is kind of a weird benefit.
Well, it's really all about the fines. All they care about is making money.
Well, he said otherwise I would have had a point on my license or something. I don't really know how it works in Michigan. So $400 later.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's silly.
Well, it wasn't all, like I said, it's not all speeding. It's because of the change of address thing. That was most.
That is in my opinion, that's excessive and more on top to punish someone than I think is necessary. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and because of this, we decided not to go to New York this weekend because the plan was to drive there.
Yeah.
So I was like, I ain't going to drive after that. I'm not gonna risk a police officer stopping me and me potentially going to jail for officially not having a license.
No, that just puts such a sour taste in the mouth.
I mean, it probably would have been fine. I mean, the chance of me getting stopped are low, but still, I'm not going to risk it. No.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I can understand.
Because if I go to jail, I could risk my visa status, I could risk my job, I could risk everything, and I'm not about to do that.
Yeah,
so
no, I got you, sir. I will not.
A little scary, and I gotta say, I was shaking during when he stopped me over because I was concerned, but I knew what to do. You know, kept my hands on the steering wheel. I turned off the engine, opened the window, and when he asked for my license and registration, I said, "Can I reach for it?" You know, I said, "It's in my pocket. Can I reach for it?" He said, "Yep, go ahead." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sir." And I kept calling him sir, and I was very slow with my actions, and you know, you never know. And he said, "Where's your documents for the vehicle?" I said, "It's in a bag in the back of the car. Can I get out of the car to show you?" He said, "Yes," and it was all fine. If you're respectful and you're very slow, and probably if you're the right skin color, you're probably going to be okay, right? Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. That's the way. That's what so I have a lot of friends who are Brazilian, right, here at the university, and they've had some bad experiences. But interestingly, it's the Brazilians that I've talked to who have a darker skin tone who have said that they've had the worst experiences. The ones with the lighter skin tone who effectively just look white, like British, so they've had, when they get stopped, it's only when they open their mouth they start getting, you know, because they have an accent. Yeah, it's horrible. It's so bad.
There is reality there.
Yeah. So no New York this weekend, sadly. Part of the reason we were going to New York was to see a band called Group Love. So those tickets were kind of wasted.
That sucks.
So be it. We're also going to go see Lexi's sister, Kitten's sister. That fell through. So instead, we're going to get a ticket for her to come over and visit us sometime soon. Instead.
Okay,
so
that's good.
Additionally, I won't be going to Korea this year, as I was originally planning to. I was planning to host a special session at a conference on one of my specialties in research, but we only had 3 out of 6 people apply. That we needed 6 really to make it worthwhile. So we've cancelled the session, which is a shame. Yeah, I was looking forward to like an upcoming and my first ever trip to Asia. I thought that was going to be cool, but so be it. It'll just be another time. But besides all that kind of sad and glum news, the one good thing that's really pulled through with travel, well, a few actually. Hello, puppy. It looks like we'll be going to Myrtle Beach later this year.
Hey, nice.
Which is great. Yeah, so we plan to do that. We're likely going to be going to Iowa at some point. I'm going to be going back to Scotland in August, as well as to Prague, Czech Republic, for a stag do.
Hey, very nice.
And lastly, and this one's it's not definitive, but this is like 70 to 80% likely now. I'll be coming over to see you soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the upcoming Winter Gamefest 2020 was announced by Mr. Adams in the past week, and there's some potential dates in the page for it that I've seen. I was hoping more for the March timeline. Now let me go check the poll just now, actually. But that is the least voted for option. So I'm going to try and be there for late February instead, which is a bit less likely, but we'll certainly try, and that'll be a lot of fun. It's quite cheap to get a return flight over there and back. So my plan is maybe to try and take one day off on the Friday, so I can really travel Thursday night or something, and stay there for the weekend. And that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be amazing. It would be awesome to have you out here, and we know it'll happen. It's just a question of like the when, right? The when kind of thing. And so it was teased, I think, when we had talked about initially you coming over, just the idea that, hey, let us all know when Game Fest will happen, and at some point it may make itself available. So yeah, no, that would be amazing. And I'm actually hoping to lock it down perhaps today, because I like to give people about a month's notice, if I can, at minimum, for when they can plan, because we've had people travel from outside of the U.S. to come to a Game Fest before, and so the earlier the notice, the better. So
Absolutely.
that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So tell me, what is it going to be the same sort of schedule as the previous Game Fest? Is there anything different this time?
Pretty much every Game Fest I do, and I've kind of mixed them together for this next one, is that it is going to be Friday night is usually a general festival of any kind of gaming. A lot of board gaming goes on, and people just generally sharing beverages, each other's presents, singing rock band, things like that, just to be a part of the overall event. And it's one that's usually open to kind of everybody, spouses, friends. It's kind of just a party night. And then that evening into usually mostly the Saturday and Sunday tend to be everyone who's going to be down in the basement playing LAN games or other types of computer games to spend the rest of the weekend. We've had exceptions to that. We've had people bring their consoles over with televisions and things like that. And really, there is an availability the entire weekend for people to just come and play games. And so if people want to come over on the Saturday and Sunday and use my venue as a place to also play board games, we've had people run miniature like D&D sessions. We've had people usually really enjoy getting together, and if there's some new fancy game that they hadn't tried, is where I first played, Betrayal at House on the Hill and stuff like that. Some of these really kind of asymmetric or really interesting kind of gameplay board games that are different than your traditional just competitive. They have an audience of people who are very likely to play games, and so we'll jump in together. So it can be done all weekend. I've had it go a variety of things. We usually, bring people together where I've had great success in convincing people to share a little more complex potluck in the time where, we pick, oh gosh, I got to give credit to Psycho Crimson, a couple other folks in it that are kind of the old school classic Game Fest folks who will often bring like casseroles or enchiladas or something like that and just refrigerate, and then some point through the weekend we bake, so that we tend to eat very well, drink very well, and it's just, my house is basically open to everyone to enjoy a weekend away from work, life, stress, things like that. And so it's my general, hey everybody, let's game. So
fantastic.
That's how I sell it.
I will do what you always do when we hang out, which is I will allow you to have some relaxing time over that weekend. So I'll help with the cleanup, I'll help with the cooking, I'll help with all this stuff, just so that you can actually enjoy yourself. Because I know that you love to do that for me in the past, and I think it's only fair that I get to return that. And I would be very upset if you didn't let me do that, sir.
I don't know if I even allow myself to actually relax over Game Fest. I'm usually too busy hosting. The point. Now, that I will say, though, at the same time, a lot of credit to my friends who have been doing this with me for quite a long time. They're not new to it. We have all learned how to do it best, and so it's nice because I have found over the years especially that no matter how raucous an event we have, come Sunday when it's time for me to clean everything up, usually after the show, once the show starts, people are like, bing, I'm out of here. But then after, when everything's settled, that night, most of my house is done and together. And come the rest of the week, it's more like, okay, I have to wash a few dishes, go back and vacuum through the house, but otherwise, it gets pretty sorted. I have a lot of good adults who actually hang out and, participate in Game Fest. When we were younger, not as much. It was a little different. Older us, really good about it. I have, friends like Unit Zero has always been really good for hanging out later because he usually has to travel further and helping me clean up the house and things like that and such. So it makes the stress of hosting the event way less.
We're all in this life together, and we all like to host and have fun. We also like to be guests and have fun. But if we all take part and do the less fun parts together, it spreads it around a little bit, and it's not one person for hours. Instead, it's each person for 10 minutes. That's all it takes.
The less and less number of like random dishes, or really, it's, because paper plates and cups, finding around the house throughout the weekend is so nice. It's just. And it's funny too because people have invested. So during the summer ones, we have multiple air conditioners down there specific to keep the cooling good during gaming. Because it used to be from sweltering summers, all those computers in the basement heating things up, to now having multiple dedicated air conditioners to keep it going. To El Campo has mentioned that he has a kegerator that'll be donated shortly, and probably in time for this Game Fest. If that's the case,
is that exactly?
A kegerator is a mini refrigerator or a refrigerator of some type that is dedicated to hosting or keeping in either full or quarter-size kegs, pony kegs, and with a dedicated tap to them so that you can just basically plug in, have compressed air or something to run it, and you basically have a tap right on for whatever kind of beer
That's
or such
awesome.
that you want.
That is so
Well,
cool.
in the past, we have rented a couple from our friends, local brewery Launchpad, who have both supported us and we've supported them, where they've given us discounts, essentially sponsoring the whole event for the weekend. We'll have a double, not kegerator in this case, but like mini kegs with a cooler they have that does a instant cool solution with the taps, and so it just runs through and you put ice in there, and so once you're pouring it, it's coming out of the tap cold. And we've had whole weekends where you've had beer on tap kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is Hando coming to Gamefest? He's talking in the chat about I will be spending most of my time in Doc's kitchen. Does that mean he's coming as well?
It is one of those things that people can make it work, and I do say in general, if you have not received an invite, it's because normally it goes through my blast on Facebook, and that's the thing. It is through Facebook that I do the blast, and I know there are several people that are regulars who don't necessarily live on Facebook, and I try to reach out to, but I often forget. I do the initial post, bam, and then I tell people, like, remind me if you don't see someone on here so that I can let them know, kind of thing. And I go through, like, previous GameFest invites, you know, because now I try to throw some out to Tabaxian every time, because he's come out the one time, and who knows, he might come to another. And so I try to make sure he's aware, like, hey, GameFest, stuff like that. So yeah, it's we'll see. But if I did miss anybody, let me know, DM me, and that way I can get an invite out there.
If you ever want to build a GameFest website, let me know. I've become quite handy at building websites quickly.
I do need to work with you on a few things to honestly just even revitalize the VTW page. But yes, no, we need to talk on some things. Anyhow, but yeah, so GameFest coming up. If you could make it, that would be flipping phenomenal. So we will have to see. That would be great. All right, so
That'd be cool.
Anything else you had that wasn't geek this week before?
No, that's everything from me, sir. Sorry that took quite a while.
No, it's all good. It's always catching up and going, and we are post CES and post news cycle, so it's not like we are chomping at the bit for other topics that we go. Although I do have some. So what I wanted to bring up this week for me to share what I've been up to and doing. I realize I make my list somewhat in like chronological order for the week, as I try to keep it straight in my brain, but not always the
I do the
case.
same, yeah.
But anyhow, this one, things I did. So I'm actually going to go a little bit reverse chronological to actually say this. Most recently, yesterday, I had the joy of being able to help celebrate a friend of mine's birthday. Actually, 2 days of it, where on Friday we met up together in the afternoon to go have sushi at an all-you-can-eat sushi place. That was quite nice. There were like 13, 14 of us there for sushi, and I want to say that like we split into two teams of kind of how we were ordering, and on one side we thought we were doing pretty good when we kind of got our rolls all together, and I want to say we might have started with, what was it, like 6 rolls, a couple appetizers, and that kind of thing. Like, we're doing all right there, just to kind of, because it's all you can eat. We'll get more, right? No big deal. But then the other side of the table, after we ordered ours and we started getting our food, like, yeah, excited, we were all hungry, hadn't eaten lunch, like we were ready for this, all you can eat sushi. They ordered, and their first roll setup was like 40 pieces of salmon rolls, as well as additional things.
Well,
so
that's
not
nowhere
40
near
rolls,
enough.
but 40 pieces. Well, again, round one. And we looked, and they just had this tray in front of them of nothing but the salmon rolls, all as a starting thing. It was just like, dang! But needless to say, we ate well, so that was lovely. And then we continued the celebration the next day. And this is actually really nice because the previous week or so I had been out celebrating with other friend where I mentioned I got to give up my 3D print gifts for my friend who's all into Viking culture and such, and how he told me that he has decorated at work, his desk has a couple of the things on them. And so he was excited to say that he has those out and about. But we had talked about my friend whose birthday I just went to. She wasn't really sure if she wanted to host a birthday. And we pressured her into it. And so she had mentioned that the sushi thing was something that normally her and her husband did alone. And so to go from that as being just a couple of them out to basically like 14 of us helping her celebrate, I felt like we did the right thing pressuring her.
Very nice.
And it continued the next day with us going, and for my first time, even though it's a common, or it's an easy thing to do around here, I'm sure many cities have them nowadays, we went to an axe throwing venue to throw axes at a wall for 2 hours. And that was quite entertaining, a good time. Although I wish I could say I was better at it. Like I think everyone in our group had success. There were 5 of us who went. we had our mixes of success, but it was not consistent, right? Because it started going for like 30 minutes of us just throwing an axe to see if it would hit. Starting with the overhead double throw, finally, where I was more comfortable with the single throw. But man, it's such a tease to get it, and trying not to do the thing where I'm just going to heave it and just like throw the axe, but instead just do the right form and let the axe rotate as it's supposed to. And so we went back and forth, and initially, like, was nice is Birthday Gal and myself, first round that we actually did competition, where we just did a dart style thing, points up to 100, and you had to hit 100 perfect or go back to 80, where we played, and she and I were on a team, and her husband and our other friends were on another team, and so they had more people, so it turned out that we were throwing axes on our team more often. But I'm happy to say we won that one. A lot of it due to Birthday Gal, who was, in practice, hitting axes all over the place. But in competition, suddenly focused and, like, was doing it.
Wow, okay.
Which is super cool. We were totally joking that she was sharking everyone.
Some people just perform well under pressure, you know?
It made a big difference. And what was nice about it is we went up to the 100, and we, like, got to the last, like, 7 points and purposely did it where she, like, hit... What was it? How did we do it? We did it like, I purposely hit the 3 or 4 point, I forget. Left it to her, and she hit like the next one that was just a point off, and the last one was just that 1 point. Whatever it was, I was able to, when it came to that last point, just like look at it and say, yep, and got it right on. Where it was like, that's it, 100 points, perfect, we win. That felt very good. Next round, which was like the blackout mode, I forget what's officially called, cricket or something, where you have to hit each point 3 times. So 3 bullseyes, 3 of each other points. Did not win that one. Both teams got down to like the bullseyes last, but they needed 1 and we needed 2. And man, we just couldn't get it to stick because it wasn't just hitting it, right? I hit it so many times, but you had to get the axe to stick in the wood on the bullseye for it to actually count. And so couldn't get that to happen, which sucked. But it was a good time. First time for me out, axe throwing, that was fun. So I would probably do that again. That was a good time.
And what you're saying about it being, you're not sure how common it is? Yeah, it's super big now.
I'm imagining. I don't know why
it suddenly picked up.
No, I'm imagining they're all over. So that's something that once I saw, I mean, because I know there's several around town in Denver now. It's not just like there's one venue. There's quite a few around. And so that was something where I was like, yep, okay. And then, okay, what else did I do? Okay. So today, I'm going to go all out of order, but both last time when on Wednesday, that was great, Ked. On Wednesday, it's still doing my normal run around Wash Park, which is essentially, actually got the math, what is it? It's officially a 5K run, and so just over 3 miles for us, but a 5K run around the park. I think that's officially it. And I'm continuing to speed up overall. Like, I'm struggling because I usually run shorter distances until I train up to long distance. I just started at this 5K right off the bat. And so this last week I did it again. Well, today, this morning before the show, I actually went out for a run again and went and did like just under a 3 mile run. So it was like just over a 2 mile run. So almost like a 3K kind of run real quick because I'm trying desperately to improve my speeds and times because I know I can be faster, but man, my body's not liking it yet. And to do that, I wanted to make sure I could start trying to run more than once a week. Because just doing it on the Wednesday, and then admittedly it's a lot of fun afterwards because the group gets together and we go to the happy hour at the Blackbird where it's hosted and we have beer and all-you-can-eat wings, which is nice, that we've earned those calorie deficiencies from the run. But at the same time, it's just like it's still a challenge, and it's colder than I like to run and all that because it's at night, and it's just, man. So I'm trying. I ran again today, and hopefully this will make me feel better, and I won't suffer for it this next Wednesday. We'll see. Also, I did a little bit of mechanic stuff in that one of my friends, Zoe, brought a car down and was trying to see some friends around the airport, stuff like that. In doing so, her car has been finicky. It's a 1990 Ford Taurus, and so it has seen many years, and that was not the most mechanically sound car when it was built, but has kept alive this whole time. And it keeps getting little things. Like the last time I helped her out, we had to put new fan on the radiator because the fan had just stopped working, so she was overheating whenever she was in traffic and not moving. Figured that out, was able to do it. On top of that, though, unfortunately, the way the wires and lines went and such, she was having a leak, and someone, whoever had installed it before, a friend of hers tried to help her put a thing on where her transmission cooler is built into the radiator, so the radiator on the side of it has a line for the transmission fluid to go to in her automatic. They had put it on with like goop around it, some kind of like, liquid or gel type gasket filler. Okay. And the problem is that's not how you're supposed to actually fit it together. And so it was leaking. She was constantly having to put transmission fluid. So in the process, I also pulled that off and tried to rework it. Unfortunately, they were so busted on there, I ended up destroying one of the metal pipes, and I had to get a replacement and try to stick it on and get it all to work. Not my best work, and it was trying to figure out with supplies on hand and some of the shops around, but was able to get to work. Unfortunately, the bit that I got that actually does connect, and the originally thing didn't have O-rings on it. I got to mostly hit, but it got loose and was leaking it, so I was able to shore that up. The challenge was, while that was all happening, she was across town in the middle of the week, and all of a sudden she's like, my car won't shift out of first gear.
Ooh, that's tough to drive in.
And so after work, I grabbed my stuff from like my toolbox and things I had, grabbed some more transmission fluid, went and found her out west of town a little ways, and at night tried to, under like a street light in a parking lot at a church, tried to like service a little bit, got more fluid in it, took it around, could not get it to shift. And so after spending like an hour working on it, said, I can't do this in the parking lot, let's get it back to my house. And so we drove like 8 or so miles back to my house on surface roads at
gear.
20 miles an hour with our hazards on, me leading her through all the way back. Thankfully, it went mostly uneventful. Had one time that someone came around just like honking their horn, and I was just like, yep, whatever. I don't care. Yep, got my hazards
douche.
on.
I mean,
it was just one of those, like,
hazards on, it says, be warned, something weird's going on.
That's the thing, right? It's trying to tell you, look, go around us. Because the only difference is I could have been towing it.
Yeah, I mean, when I crashed my my motorbike, I had the same thing. I had to drive all the way back home, and that was about 3-4 miles from where I was. And I was trying to drive without any foot pedals, so my feet were just like floating there.
Oh yeah,
and thankfully I got a police escort, but still, that's scary.
Yeah, no, and so I mean, we made it fine, gave plenty of lead time. We got caught at one light, I think, that was, can we get through or not? But everything worked out well. The challenge is, though, I have tried in my free time, because I've also got life, right? All the things I normally have going on, to try to spend a little time to help her troubleshoot this. And so I think I have another step forward, because I've done it again. I finally got where the fluid's up to where it should be, and it doesn't look like it's leaking anymore, stuff like that, but it still won't shift. And so I'm thinking that the speed sensor in the transmission might be worn out and gone, because you're not supposed to run it dry constantly. And so, because it seems like she'd run it almost dry of transmission fluid. So it may be worse. There may be an issue where it is possible that the tranny is blown in some way, and it may need real service, which is way more expensive than that car's worth. But it's possible, and this is the next cheapest solution outside of fluid kind of thing, is that the VSS is broken, and I can get that replaced for about $20, or at least get a new part. But I have to go like find it. Like
Sure.
It's a 90. There's not enough documentation easy to find, so I gotta go look and see if I can get hold of it. But that'll be after the show's adventure. While there's still sun up and it's still warm out, I'm hoping to at least take a look. But yeah, so that happened. Anyhow, it's for me. I like that I can mechanic things, and I generally know. Generally, I get good answers, but this is on an edge of not my knowledge, and so I was just kind of like, Anyhow, other than that, and I'll try to finish this section before we get to the break here. 2 things that I watched, and it's kind of the in between of whether geeky or not. And so maybe a good transition out of this into the break. One, I don't know if people are aware out there, there's a new Harley Quinn series out there from DC.
That's geeky, yeah.
That's from DC. There's a new Harley Quinn series out there. And I can't tell you where it's airing. I just can tell you I've seen it. And that...
How is that possible, Wayne?
It is... you can have other people that have access to things. It is something that... It is not the series I expected, is how best I can state it. It is what I would have expected if they had made a Lobo animated series. Being a character that in the comics has always been very brutal, openly a mercenary that kills people. This is in the Batman world, has the normal characters that you would expect, but it is in its own way kind of either you would consider, I would say, a parody, or looking at the Batman universe from Harley Quinn's perspective in many ways.
Okay.
And I say that
she's
because
mad.
it's animated in a slightly off-kilter way. It's basically normal Warner Brothers type animation, but I don't think it's Warner Brothers doing it, which would be odd. But like the Joker is animated in such a way that it's not as well refined as you've seen in other things. And even though there's like just slightly where I would say the overall quality of animation and drawing is a little not even a full step below what you would hope, but just like very lightly below like the normal Batman series. But I think it's intentional. They do a little more simplification of some of the characters and how they're drawn. But what gets me is from the first scene they show in the series, this is a rated R cartoon.
Okay.
It has gratuitous violence that is visceral. Not just blood, but like compound fractures, exploding heads, bodies being riddled with bullets, being stabbed. You see gray matter, you see blood, you see everything. People get messed up in that series. The language is equally over the top and are you kidding me? Like, it starts out with a scene happening and Harley Quinn saying, "What the S-bomb?" And then the language just ramps up from there. And so there's a whole lot of MFs and Bs and everything you can imagine. Every swear word out there is in this series. And so I say this because I don't want someone to accidentally think, oh, it's another Batman cartoon or something, and I can let my kids watch it. Because, I grew up watching the Batman series and things like that, and that was awesome. This ain't for you if you're a child. No question. This is for the adults who are aware of Harley Quinn, Suicide Squad, things like that. And I would say what's really interesting about it is the story they tell is I would categorize or I summarize as the emancipation of Harley Quinn. It is her coming to realization that the relationship she's had through the Joker ain't good.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah, I've heard of this.
And so it really comes from a perspective that, and I give it some level of honesty for how they're talking about her psyche and how jacked up of a character she is, and how it portrays their relationship with her and with Joker, and what it progresses to in what she tries to accomplish throughout the series. And it's good. I do like it. It has some fun takes on different characters. Again, say parody a bit because one of the characters you'll run into at one part is, Batman's there. Commissioner Gordon is done in a way that I've never seen. And it's Gordon, but he has seen some things. And it has not been kind to him, and he has not done well with it. And then there's things like Robin's in it, which is the newer Damian Robin, Batman's son. But they take it to an extra level with him at the parody level because instead of having the motorcycle or his own car or something like that, he's actually going around on a little hoverboard that can fly through the air. But it's legit a little hoverboard that has tiny little like robin wings on the edges of it over the wheels. And it's silly. And his voice actor, I'd have to look up who it is, has the most childish, like 4-year-old voice. Even though Damien's like 13 or 14. It's just got this.
Well, kids that age don't necessarily have to have gone through puberty.
Well, but I mean, they play to it because there's a point where one of the storylines is that Harley Quinn is trying to make a name for herself, and in doing so, in her world, they kind of joke to the point that every superhero or villain has their nemesis, and she is looking for her nemesis. Where Batman and Joker are nemesis and such, and other ones have been noted as such. She wants one to help legitimize herself as her own supervillain. And it gets into a situation where Robin basically gets presented as a potential. She's like, nope, not dealing with a sidekick as a nemesis. I'm not a sidekick anymore. But Robin's like, hey, she's my nemesis. But I cannot do the squeaky voice. It is so weird. But anyhow, 8 episodes that I've seen so far, or 7, I'm on the 8th episode, and I'm enjoying it. But like I said, I want to throw that caveat warning that ain't for kids. All right. Last thing I was going to say that's on that transition into the Geek Cred side is I had an opportunity on Monday, on the holiday, to take off work a little early and go find a friend. Went out to go see a animated release movie, an anime, from the same maker as the movie Your Name, which is a very touching, in-depth kind of relationship but sci-fi story in an animated movie. This one is called Weathering with You, and it's one that I knew I wanted to see it just because I really enjoyed what they did with Your Name. It just, like I said, Your Name was touching and caught me off guard with how really well done it was. So this one, and I'll show the trailer for it as I go, it talks about a relationship between a boy and a girl. Not in a traditional sense of them trying to be in a relationship, but them meeting up in a situation. And it's a time frame. It takes place in Tokyo, and I like because it's in modern Tokyo. And so it has one of those aspects to most Japanese anime that I really appreciate, which is it's a slice of life type of series where it shows people interacting around their normal day life in Tokyo as regular citizens do. The only difference and the sci-fi aspect of it, or what they kind of go into in the story, is that there hasn't been sunshine essentially in Tokyo consistently for months. That it has been raining for a consistent time. And there's a folklore story that there are people out there, usually a gal, who can essentially wish upon the heavens to get sunshine. And so it goes into him essentially meeting a gal who seems to have that ability. And them going through this whole story about knowing each other and interacting and whether it's real or not, and just goes into this whole thing where the more they're hanging out, the more they get to know each other. It's really cute, and it's a great story, and it has some twist to it I wouldn't have expected that I really liked. And I love the animation style. And again, I love just how honest it is from a Japanese real life story. It's one of those things, it's real life, but then they just add that little bit of folklore to make it something more. And I really, really appreciated it. And so big thanks to my friend that went and saw it with me, because I know this isn't the kind of thing that would have been for everyone, but I had an amazing time checking it out. I do recommend it. It's one of those, if you liked Your Name, I expect you will like Weathering with You a lot. And
it sounds like an interesting premise, but as with most anime, I know I probably wouldn't enjoy it, sadly.
Well, it's again, I go into the sense that, like I said, it's an anime movie in the sense that it's not suffering from a lot of what I know, Ken, that you don't appreciate about a lot of animated things from Japan, with a lot of the over-the-top animation. This is a much more centered around us just telling a story around, it just happens to be in an animated format, because it's much more realistic Japan. It's not like people running around with superpowers and stuff like that. There is a fantasy aspect to it that goes into that kind of the folklore piece, but it's not done in a way that's like over the top ridiculous. And so I think there would be maybe one trope in it, the whole thing, that you would look at and be like, oh, there's an anime trope. But it's like just that I think one minimal scene. Yeah, it's like one scene I think that would get you on that level. But I want to throw it out there because I know for a lot of the fans who see some of those things, that might be something you'd appreciate. I really did. So I want to throw that there. All right, it is time for us to take a break. And so this will be a good transition as we come back to officially get into things that are Geek Cred related. And so with that, it is time for you to either take your bio or stretch your legs or whatever it is you like to do. If you're still here and watching, by all means, chat into the chat to keep up with what's going on with each other, and take the opportunity, if you'd like to share your Geek Cred as we get into it, to email us in at showx@vtwproductions.com. We already have one sitting in there waiting to share after the break. And so we'd love to hear from you. What have you been doing that's been geek? But with that, you're listening to ShowX, and we'll be back in right about just over 3.5 minutes. So this is a song from our friends Edifice, because I haven't played one of theirs for a while. One of my local friends' bands. The song is called Open Door. And so we'll be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx@vtwproductions.com. listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. It is time for us to get right into a little bit of...
I'm a geek. Are you a geek? Geek Cred, level up!
For the Geek Cred this week, we got an email to start things off. Ken, would you do the honor?
Absolutely. So this is from our good friend, Senor Hando, who has... How long has Hando been listening to the show? For a very long time.
Hando's been listening since the beginning of the show, because Hando used to listen prior on all the shows with WC Radio. So Hando and Copy are two of our longest listeners, viewers, and such that we've had, and have been here respectively through all of our transition shenanigans and such. So we very much appreciate you both, and thank you for continuing to support us.
We love you guys. We love you guys. We love all of our fans. We very much appreciate you listening in. All right. So this email's from Hando, and it says, "Attention all space prospectors looking for exciting new adventures on a distant Earth, like Planet, with a benevolent capitalist dictatorship in search of fortune?" I'm already supremely intrigued into the possibilities of what this could be, because I have already no idea. I know that Hando's big on space engineers and the likes, but I don't think that's this. I don't know what the dictatorship thing could be. Oh, it totally is. Look no further than Planet Hando in Space Engineers. Our glorious planetary leader, Hando, will put you in touch with the local mayor of a mining colony full of potential. Want to rent an exploration vehicle? We have that. Want to rent a driller? We have that. Want to have a drink at the local saloon and play some cards? We have that. Want to start your own mining colony? Get in line. All prices are fair and square. Absolutely no refunds. Come and join the fun for almost 99.9% of a chance of fame and fortune, subject to constant market change. From our glorious leader and mayor, Hando the Wise.
That's awesome.
Thank you for letting me read that. I enjoyed that thoroughly.
That was wonderful, Hando. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, that's so good. So, yes.
Yeah, Space Engineers is a game that I always wanted to enjoy, but not only does it not work for me now, I find it really tough to get into in the first place. Because when I played it, it was in like alpha. I think it's still in beta or something.
Well, it's one of those things. Any of those games that are kind of pre-release that you get access to, early access and stuff like that, we have got, it's a challenge I have, right? And I'm suffering this right now because I'm Star Citizen, which I'll talk about. You get into it, you start playing the experience of it. It's like, this is great. I enjoyed it, whatever piece of it, whatever. But it's still not done. And so it actively continues to change and iterate over time. And so a lot of times I have to step away and just not touch it for quite some time until it's either fully released or something significant happens.
Yeah, like playing alpha or beta is fine if it's not terrible. But the problem with me was that game just crashed constantly for me.
One of the challenges with any of the early access stuff, where it's one of those things you want to support a game. And it's funny because we're in this weird state where early access is, in a sense, you're playing the alpha or beta. And I laugh that they call it early access, but you're paying for the experience, where it used to be they would let a small select people in to the alpha beta for free to help them literally test bugs and get that experience with no expectation that they're going to either buy it or that the game's ever going to be truly playable in that state. And then you'd come back when it's fully released and play it. Now,
I'm always so torn with this because I think it's such a good way to fund people, like developers who may not have the funds to actually make the game fully in the first place, which I get. But at the same time, it's now big companies doing it because they just want the money sooner. They're just greedy. Right?
The big challenge is that it continues to evolve the market, and so now you have more and more companies. And admittedly, Star Citizen, Robert Space Industries is one of the most notorious about this, where they raise mass amounts of money and never actually have or don't necessarily deliver the product promised, right? You just don't know what you're going to get. And so you're paying for the possibility of a good game versus the encouraging companies to build a good game so that you'll buy it.
Exactly.
That market, which is so challenging, why I usually recommend don't, right? And there's rare cases where I say, hey, if you've always been a fan or you can track the past success of a specific person or something they did, and you want to risk it, go, but realize the whole time you're risking it, right?
Yeah.
And in many cases, like even Space Engineers and some of these other ones, Factorio, Terraria, all these other ones that have done the same thing, they're solid, great experiences. But my problem is that it's later and later that eventually you get to a game that maybe it's worth actually checking out. Or in some cases, what I've seen with most of my groups, you play it when it first comes out and there's hype. And you get to a point where you've kind of done everything you want to do, and then you just let it go. And what you look forward after that, which maybe this is a good thing, right? Months later, a big patch comes out after lots of little updates that maybe changes something so fundamentally that it's worth you going back and experiencing again, and it's almost a new game. And that's where Earthweaver brought it up, saying 7 Days to Die is up to Alpha 18 and continuing. And I remember we played, 7 Days for a while when it first came out. I backed off it for a long time. Then other groups I know kept jumping back in. And I played it again for a little bit when it got another big update. I was like, wow, this is almost a different game. That's pretty cool. And then I backed off it again. It's just kind of like, a part of me is just finish the dang game, right? Get it to a point where it's gold. Get it out there. Let people just know you're done, essentially. Because instead what we have is games that are in perpetual development and don't ever fully release, or you're not sure if they ever will. And I don't know. It's to me, it's milking it, I guess. It's good because you can maybe get a more continued long experience, but I feel like, come on, developers, do your job. Just build the game and be done with it. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's big companies are the problem. And I understand that they're basically just making the most of people's extreme urge to play the next one early. I mean, it sounds so cool and so fun. But in reality, you're not really playing the full game. You're just supporting them for being lazy, and then they eventually. And this happens a lot, right? With a lot of early games that don't do so well, they get rewarded for a game.
They get paid regardless if it actually came out and was good. And yeah, they're getting rewarded for it, and you have issues where you're now paying to beta test, which I also think is a negative thing, because I've seen a lot of teams where it seems, and maybe I'm wrong in this, that they're now employing or spending less time testing their games before putting it in front of people, because they're like, nah, we got people willing to pay us to test it. Why would we pay for a tester?
And in the eyes of a manager, that makes perfect sense not to bother with, right?
Yeah.
I get it.
It's just frustrating, because I feel like, and there's a lot to be said, but they get so many more people. I was like, yes, but there is something to be said about having a dedicated tester. And that's something actually I've dealt with at work, where getting actual software development where you have it going this and that, because my team would do a lot of our own testing. We finally paid essentially for the group developing the software to have an additional specific tester. The goal to buy down risk, right? To have more of the code looked through and more of the things gone through and processes every time a new release is done, versus my small office, who are actually the product owners and customers, having to do all the testing ourselves and then going back and saying, oh, you missed this, or hey, this is broken. And really, having an internal tester is probably the most efficient, rapid turnaround, because there's a lot of things you want to test that are just for polish, that require tedious work, right? Sitting there and really digging into whatever it is. And so I understand what they're doing, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I get it. And no, you're right. Testing is an incredibly important part of software development cycle. And I think a lot of companies underestimate that, or poo-poo testers, or they only test for what they think is important as opposed to robustness and such, and variety of systems, right? Enough so it looks okay-ish on launch day and they can get away with it, but not actually good.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, again, we're giving them free license by paying early for something that's not finished. So,
and space engineers, don't get me wrong, nowadays I feel like I'm pooping on it too much.
Well, no, we're not specifically attacking space engineers. It's the concept of it, because I'm about to turn around and gush in some ways about Star Citizen, even though it's in alpha and with no scheduled release date, right? And so I'm about to twist exactly what we're saying on its head by saying, but I'm appreciating the experience I'm having right now. So it's a give or take. It's just something to be aware of before you just throw your money at somebody.
Absolutely. And Space Engineers is actually a good game, and it looks impressive. It just doesn't run on my system. I tried it not so long ago.
And obviously, Hando's enjoying it, and there's an opportunity there for as the updates come out. And I do recommend, if you know someone yourself that is a very excited person for a certain game or something, and they're in an alpha, and they can tell you when it gets to a point that it is more stable, some new feature you've been waiting for is there, hey, that's when maybe it's time for you to go check it out. So, all right. Thank you, Hando, for the email. We do appreciate it. A good recruitment call for anyone who might be interested in playing some Space Engineers. If you don't have Hando's information, just message us and we can get you it. But if you, if nothing else, you can message him right now in the chat, since I'm sure they're looking for other engineers to come help out his exploration and mining and profits. So, thank you, Hando.
Yeah.
All right. So how about specific to you, Ken? What have you been doing that you consider geek?
Well, sir, yeah, obviously I said at the start, yeah, I played a little bit of League, and I got mad at it this week. I played 5 days ago, but since then I've been really focusing hard on a project that's kind of work related, but kind of not, which I'll get into at the very end. So yeah, I played a little bit of League of Legends, and I've been mad about that. I've also been reading. I finished The Shining this week, the audiobook. And I actually got an email from Audible. Shout out to our sponsor, link in the chat. They actually sent me an email this week saying that if I finish 3 audiobooks in the next 2 weeks, I think it was, they're going to give me a $20 Amazon gift voucher, which is just a really neat promotion because I was going to read that much anyway to try and meet my yearly goal this year. So
that's nice.
It's basically just going to be a free $20, which is pretty good. The problem is that most of the books in my library right now that I plan to read this year, and in fact, let me go through a couple of them.
Do they have like a specific list that they want you to read, or
No, it's just any books. No, my problem is the ones that I've already paid for in the past that I've got sitting waiting for me are quite long books. So the one I'm reading just now is nice and short. I'm reading The Hobbit because I had never read it before.
Oh, yeah, that one. I love The Hobbit so much better than Lord of the Rings.
Well, I disagree completely. You are being sarcastic, right?
No, I actually really do like The Hobbit better. I think it's a better paced book. I think it's way more enjoyable for the characters and doesn't have as much of the like trotting minutia that you get into Lord of the Rings. It takes forever to get through. The Hobbit just tells the story, gives you the characters, and it's so much more entertaining. That's my honest opinion. I think Tolkien is a terrible writer, but I think he creates a beautiful world.
Oh my God, I could. Okay,
but again,
give his world credit.
I think what he built in his lore, what he built, the overall thing that happened in it is amazing. I think his storytelling is boring, and that he gets into details that don't matter and aren't beneficial to like my understanding of what the world's doing. In a lot of ways, that Stephen King gets criticized when he spends too much time on like detail on one specific thing that takes away from the overall plot line of story. Not that I want just plot, because I actually have that criticism of some things I've been reading lately. I think there's a welcome balance. Give me enough detail that I can really picture it, feel it, and tell me the story in such a way that I'm experiencing it with the characters versus being told at. But at the same time, don't like just get stuck on the details of the world. And I love worlds, but don't tell me just the details. Don't just focus on this one aspect. Give me enough that I'm feeling that I'm there, but then let's do stuff. And so I don't feel like Tolkien was good at the let's do stuff as much as he was the here's my world and such.
Right. I understand. I just don't agree.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's why, for me, The Hobbit is much more an easy read. It's on the scale of me almost like...
It's certainly an easy read.
Ease, and I enjoy the characters and the stories told versus like Lord of the Rings, which is like, wow, to the extreme of like the Cimmerian. I can't say it right. Which is, the encyclopedia type thing. And so, he's got a range. And for me, I'm much more entertained by The Hobbit.
I liked The Hobbit more when I hadn't read it. And by that I mean that when I read a little bit Lord of the Rings and when I saw the films, I thought, oh wow, I can't believe I haven't read this book yet, because clearly it's like one of the first main linear stories in the Tolkien universe, and I haven't read it yet. How haven't I read it? I've read everything else, apart from like his letters and stuff. I've not done all that. I finally got to reading it, and so first of all, I actually got the dramatized version of it by mistake. I picked that up. I thought I just clicked on the first one, thinking when you search for The Hobbit, it would be I don't know. I was dumb, right?
Okay.
I just didn't really pay attention. I just saw J.R.R. Tolkien. Yup. Hobbit. Yup. That's me. Let's go. And I was like, this is only 2 hours long.
Oh, geez.
Like,
whoa.
I know The Hobbit's short.
It's short, but it ain't that.
And that's what people, it ain't that short, right?
No. Wow.
So I looked at it and I started listening to it, and I was about half an hour in when I thought, this is trash. It was so bad. I showed Kit in the little clip from it as well. I was like, listen to this. And it was... basically, they strip all description from it.
Oh, so God, no.
The verbalization. And even then, they modify it as if it's for children. I don't know if it was.
Come on, Ken. You can't... Okay, tell me right away, right now, tell me, have you since actually started reading or listening to a proper version?
Oh, yeah. I'm now listening to the real version.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going to say, that by itself would disqualify any complaint if that was the issue. Okay. That saves it, because otherwise I was about to rip into you.
It was entirely my own fault, don't get me wrong.
But I was just saying,
it was just so incredibly bad.
If you had left it at that, I would have been very disappointed.
No.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
reading the real thing now, and I'm 5 hours out of 11 at the moment. So I'm getting through it. But yeah, the dramatization was so very bad that like everybody had the squeaky, annoying voices. There was just lots of songs, like more songs than speeches.
There are
But
lots
the
of songs.
Were, it was so annoying. Like the Misty Mountains song, which is so good in the movie, by the way. It's amazing. Like I listen to it casually now. And even in the actual audiobook, the Misty Mountains version is different than the film version, and that's fine. But it still sounds like what you think of as dwarves. In the dramatized version, the elves are described as these jolly folk who are funny and laughing and silly, and they just consistently offend people about how fat they are and stuff. And I was like, what? This is not an elf. Like I was like offended.
Gosh.
I was like,
yeah, no, that's bad.
I actually thought to myself at this point, did Tolkien write the elves completely differently? And like, is the Hobbit like a different I don't know, original version of what he envisaged this universe to be? But I eventually realized that this is just some rehashing, poor reimagining of the universe. And elves were seen as these ungraceful louts, monkeys and trees.
That is so wrong.
It was horrible.
Yeah, that's wrong. Okay, anyhow. So, minus that garbage.
So yes, I've been reading The Hobbit and it's been fine. I'm enjoying it. It's not as good as Lord of the Rings. I'm really like it. It feels too fast paced. I feel like the characters are kind of hapdash and not really described. I don't like the fact that the main bunch, there's like 14 different characters there, 1 Hobbit, 13 dwarfs.
Yeah.
And I couldn't name you 3 of the dwarfs, and I don't know the differences between them. Right? I know the main one, Thorin Oakenheart, right? Like or Oakshield. I know him, right? But like I don't know the rest of them, and I don't particularly care because they're just dwarves. They're just a bunch of dwarves. That's all they are. And I don't feel myself caring. I did like Gollum being introduced. That was pretty interesting. His background and such is quite good.
Yeah, no, they do Gollum justice in that.
I also kind of dislike the fact that right now Gandalf is just some random wizard that's pals with some people.
Well, because he's doing other things.
Well, he's there most of it so far. I mean, but like he disappears a couple of times when he comes back, but it's not really described as to what he's up to. He's just some rando wizard. And it's like, oh yeah, there's wizards in this world, and that he's one of them, and that's it. It's not at all what Gandalf actually is. The power that Gandalf has is vast.
But again, it plays to where when you actually do tie it all together, and I don't like it, but the good and bad of the movie turning The Hobbit into 3 movies, which I don't think was good. They added a bunch of the other details that you get from the other stories about what Gandalf was doing during the time. Because remember, Tolkien wrote The Hobbit as a prequel after he'd already basically written Lord of the Rings, that it was like, we need something to lead into this to help introduce the idea of the One Ring and where it came from and things like that, versus just going directly into, it being given to Frodo and the party to go on. And so that kind of thing. Because in all honesty, like, when it's I don't normally get this passion because I'm not a Tolkien scholar in any means. I don't really know. I haven't studied it. I just know what I've enjoyed of the stories. And I love The Hobbit because I actually like Bilbo and I hate Frodo in every instance. Every instance I want Frodo to just die quickly because he just annoys me. With Bilbo, it's kind of this whole adventure of like, he's going beyond what he's comfortable with, but he's actually succeeding.
I think the ring is better introduced through Lord of the Rings than it is through this, because in this, the ring is just seen as like, it's a neat ring that you're invisible with, and it's not really. I'm not all the way through yet, but so far it's just some magic ring. It's not really explained
throughout.
I like the fact that in the actual Lord of the Rings, you can see what happened to Bilbo with him having a lifetime of it, and the similarities between him and Gollum.
And that's the key, because what they do in The Hobbit is it's the introduction. The ring is a slow seductor. It's not an instant corrupter. And so in that...
it is to an extent. I mean, if you look at Gollum's original... I can't remember the name of whose Gollum's original name was. But when he was a hobbit, it was
essentially a hobbit.
Yeah, it was essentially just a hobbit.
But
and it was
they
his birthday,
also...
fishing with a character, right?
But they also talked about it was one of his things that he himself already had some ill intent in his mind. It accentuated it. It tempted in. Just like when it went to...
It wasn't slow, right?
Well,
it was
sudden. Talking to the character of the Hobbits and why Bilbo and Frodo were so important in it is that they... Okay, you're right. It's not slow for most. But for them, it was a slow roll because of their character. And how generally good they were. Where, man, you got me because Oh, I just almost came back with Gollum's name again. Tip of the tongue crap. Someone in our chat knows it off the top of their head. But it's one of those, and you're going to look it up, but it's one of those things that...
I googled Gollum's name, and Google, you know how Google has those little like suggestion box that it grabs from...
Yeah, the top things.
Yeah, it says Gollum, ring bearer. So that's not his name. Like, what? Google, you're an idiot.
Yeah, no, Gollum's original name. Smeagol, thank you.
Was Smeagol his original?
Yeah,
oh, right.
Smeagol.
I thought that was just his alternate...
No,
okay,
Smeagol is his actual name, because in Lord of the Rings, when they actually start talking to him more, he tries to say Smeagol to actually bring him away from being Gollum.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's how it comes back and forth. Anyhow, yes. I will get off of my rants about Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. We clearly disagree.
That's fine.
Because yes,
we both enjoy some of his books, right? So that's fine. It's just we just inverse which ones. I think it's fine. It's like it's okay. It's just I don't know. Like to me, Gandalf is this character who has so much depth and intrigue and backstory that I adore. And in this so far, he's just a guy, and he can make a torch. He can start a very small fire in a pine cone. Like, that's not Gandalf, you know. Like that I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I'm reading right now. I finished The Shining this week, and I've thoroughly enjoyed The Shining. That was very enjoyable.
Shining's good.
And like I said, the problem is I'm trying to do 3 audiobooks in 3 weeks right now. The Hobbit's quite short, and that's fine. But the other ones in my library are some Robert Jordan books. I've got the next 2 ready, which are 37 hours and 41 hours. I've got Beggars in Spain, which is 16 hours, which is okay. I've got the original George R. R. Martin Game of Thrones I've never read, 33 hours.
Okay. I like audiobooks on those.
Last year, before I even considered this challenge, I know that one day I want to read this book because I've heard so many good things about it, even though it is a challenge in itself to do. Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, which is 61 hours to get through. And I'm like, why do I have such long books in my library when like literally one of the longest books you can read is in my library when I'm trying to do fast. So I've got I'm changing my list of what I was going to do next. Instead, I'm going to focus on Ian M. Banks's next 2 in the series because I'm slowly getting through his sci-fi books and the culture universe. So I'm reading Matter and Look to Windward next, which are 17 and 12 hours respectively.
Okay.
So that'll get me through it. So hopefully, my plan is to read through those in the next 2 weeks or so. But I'm already behind schedule, so I'm going to put some time aside and just sit and read and get through it.
Good luck, sir.
So aside from reading, and always feel free to befriend me on Goodreads if you have it. So aside from that, you can. I've also been watching a little bit of TV. Kitten and I took a little bit of time yesterday, and she thankfully let me persuade her into watching the new Star Trek Picard, which came out this week. And she was pleasantly surprised. The problem is when you watch old Star Trek now, you kind of watch it through the lens of current cinema and expectations.
How well certain things hold up or not.
Yeah, and Star Trek, it's not just the animation or whatever. Like Star Trek Next Generation, for example, its animation isn't amazing. Like there's some fairly okay-ish animation at best. But it's not terrible, right? It's not like 1950s. It's fine. You get what they're trying to do. But the problem is more that TNG focuses almost solely on talking. That's pretty much the entire series, right? It's people talking.
It's more of a space drama with light action. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the main difference between modern times and then in terms of TV shows and films is the camera work, the suspense, the time taken for little things like seeing somebody breathe. If you watch Breaking Bad, every second, it is a masterpiece. Every second is so well cinematically captured, right? It truly is an artwork. But if you watch something like Star Trek TNG, which is fantastic, and I love TNG, there's just so much time where you'll just see a character walk out of a room to let you know they walked out of a room, but you feel like you wasted your time watching that. You almost wish you could cut that. Like, I didn't need to see that. It feels like every scene has so much gumph in there that is unnecessary in actual filming. Nowadays, it's so much more streamlined that every second counts and it's important. Or it's beautiful.
There was a very specific change in time from what we had for the way serials like that were filmed, right? And honestly, right, everything today has a much more film quality to it. Technology's improved in such a way, cameras have improved in such a way that everything is high def, everything has a bit of cinema to it compared to what it was back then. And so back then there was a very distinct difference between television and cinema, like very distinct. Today it gets closer and closer, right? When I watch the episodes today of His Dark Materials, arguably, right, that is basically an 8-hour movie versus it being just a television
It's our
show.
expectations. The bar has been raised to such a high extent that we can no longer just have some guy with a camera and a few friends that can make a TV show. That's impossible. We have such high expectations for the cinema-like quality.
It's funny as you actually can today because the cameras are that good.
Well, that's true as well.
But everything is improved. So I can understand. All right, but on Picard...
Yeah, so I know that you've watched it as well, right?
I have.
Okay, let's both discuss it then. What were your thoughts? Without spoilers, of course.
So it's interesting because, and unfortunately, I don't know, I didn't see if they're on today or not, but, our friends, the Wasiks, because they have been going through and try to watch, John's been trying to get Beck to go through and watch all of the Star Trek stuff in kind of order and stuff. I think they got through DS9 or finishing up with DS9 and are getting ready to go on Voyager or something like that they were actually trying to get through them all before Picard came out. But they've seen Next Generation. And so it's funny because of all the genres out there, I would say John's biggest thing is Star Trek. He is more a Trekkie than probably anything else I've seen him into. Like, he loves Doctor Who and some other stuff, but Trek is his thing. And so he was bubbling in anticipation and was constantly doing the updates about it's coming out, I can't wait. And so for me, I kind of saw his buzz and I wasn't sure, right? Because Sir Patrick Stewart is not getting any younger. And as much as he has kind of for a long time kept a level of perpetual age, right? I would say that he's on the cusp of that not being the case. Where he is older, and I will arguably say it shows.
It's supposed to, though,
but
right?
One of the nice things, and I say this because I was watching some of his press junket running around interviews, and I see Patrick Stewart today, and I'm like, Patrick Stewart's getting older, right? You're going to have to accept that he has less years to go than he did. Which sucks, right? Because he's an awesome actor. I've loved almost everything I've seen him in.
One of the best.
And
truly one of the best.
So but it's like anything. It's like almost when you see a family member and you realize age is a factor, and it finally kicks in. And so seeing that, it's kind of like, all right, I'm aware of this. But what I liked about Picard is that I think it takes a very honest look at the character, and I think it places Jean-Luc Picard in the universe 20 years after he was a part of it, right? After what he was doing. And I liked that. I appreciated how they kind of started the series in a way that I thought was mindful of tying together people's memories of TNG, of Next Generation, and what is now the case. And so it's one of those things that's just like, I feel like they've really put some time and effort and craft into what they're producing. And even what you've heard Patrick Stewart say around interviews is that he feels like they've put a lot of care into this. And in ways, it also is different than most anything Star Trek related people have seen.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
I would say it feels more like the modern films of Star Trek, but in the TNG-esque universe as opposed to the rest of the Star Trek universe.
It is, yes. It has that care, and it's one of those things where they did the right thing, right? And I love when series do this, and I've seen a few that have. It is taking place 20 years after the events of the last movies and such with Next Generation. Because it's been 20 years since Patrick Stewart basically has been Jean-Luc Picard. And so they're doing the proper thing in that not only the time they're depicting in the series, it is the real time that we have had separated in real life. Yeah. And I love when shows do that, because to me that also gives them a little more grounding in what the universe is doing and helping them tell the story. They don't have to make some wild jumps or leaps and things. It actually lets it, I think, be a little more real to the audience. And I was very happy with where they initially really introduce you to what's going on today for Jean-Luc specifically.
They did a very good job of that.
It felt exactly like where he should have been.
Yeah.
Right? From where he's at and what he's doing. And yet they even hint at things about why he's where he's at and eventually they kind of give you a little more tease of and taste of it throughout the episode. They give you enough to let you know what's the basis for it.
So my biggest concern with this that was absolutely taken away from me, and I feel like they've accomplished, is that I was concerned that Picard would come back as a different character due to the modern landscape of TV, right?
Gotcha.
But I truly feel like he is that compassionate, proud, intelligent, wise man, father-like figure in some respects to humanity, right? Not to a person. He feels like the father-like figure to all of humanity in this universe. He is the savior of mankind and others, right? And I feel like they've kept him as that same person, but older, and if anything, more compassionate in his age, and that's the only difference.
Well, I will say that the interview scene,
so good,
right? I think that scene alone does more for the backstory, who the character is, where we're at today with him, than anything else they progress. They do other things that show tease out the plot of what this series will be for this season, and I have mixed on what it's going to happen. We'll see. I mean, I'm fine with it. It's not like I'm oh my god or oh heck no. I'm fine with what they're doing. I'm not sold, or we'll see what happens yet.
I think it's tough to have such a legendary actor and character as Jean-Luc Picard next to anybody else, because in the end we know this isn't just TNG continued, right? It's not all the exact same actors and actresses. Some of them aren't even around anymore, right? It literally can't be that. It's not just TNG's revived and it continues from before and they're flowing through space. Things have changed, right?
But
and that means there's new characters and such. And I think
absolutely. You can't. It's not the crew, right? It's not the crew of the Enterprise. No, this is
as such,
Picard's story.
It's kind of it's Picard's story, and it's kind of hard to introduce a bunch of new characters, but they have to, because you can't just it's not the same show. But it's kind of hard to have so much care for any of these new characters when you have Picard there, right? Picard is like I every time he was on screen, I was enthralled. I was so excited and listening to it. I was on the cusp of every word, right? But then when somebody else was talking, I was like,
Now you see, I thought they did a great job though of tying the other characters necessary into his storyline and what they're telling.
Yes.
And what will happen with him going forward, such that I am already vested in that I am looking forward to the next episode. I think the cinematography of it felt good in a lot of ways, that actually I will say better than The Mandalorian, in that the world of Picard, of Star Trek, every ounce of it seems solid, right? Seems like the entire planet, the entire world is Star Trek at that time. And so I was really appreciative of that. And it's something that I'm on the edge of gushy to it, because I really, coming off the first episode, was like, let's do this.
I was excited. Yeah, I'm still excited. I'm paying for CBS All Access because I want to watch this in full HD, and I want to get it the second it's available. So I don't mind paying, right? Like, I hate paying for multiple streaming services, and I can assure you, once this is done, I'm going to unsubscribe, right? Well, like, I have no intention of sticking around, but I'll dump $20 into it for watching this season. Yeah, of course.
This is one of those things that's kind of the discussion on slightly into the news thing. Although I don't think I grabbed this one specifically. The comments about every streaming service or every network service kind of thing, that as soon as the show you care about is gone, just like the old HBO with Game of Thrones thing, everyone's like, peace! I don't need to subscribe to that anymore. That kind of comment has happened with Disney Plus, with The Mandalorian, and the comments that the Obi-Wan or the Kenobi series is potentially on hiatus and we don't know when it'll be finished. A lot of people are like, well, then why am I holding on to Disney Plus? Let me let that go then, because I was waiting for more Star Wars stuff and things, and I'll resubscribe in 6 to 8 months when the next season of Mandalorian comes out. So, yeah, that's interesting. Man, CBS All Access. I'm still against the whole everybody having their own service. Dang it.
Yeah,
and this it sucks for me because when my parents were here, they started flipping through my television, and it's got, being an LG, it's got its own behind kind of network thing that ties into all of these digitally produced content, which makes other television channels that go beyond the normal broadcast, so that my television effectively has 700 channels or something, or 600 channels or something. And a lot of it's web content, but it's stuff that you can start looking at. There's full-on shows across all of these different networks and all of these behind paywall networks that I don't know if I'm happy or sad that it's almost like there's too much damn content out there. Back to the original thing that anybody can produce something now fairly professionally.
Well, that's exactly why, even in the 90s, I think is when this really kicked off. Although I am kind of one-sided on this due to the fact I was born in the 90s, so I don't know what it was like beforehand. But I feel like in the 90s, cable TV and satellite TV really kicked off in a big way. And it went from, in the UK, you used to have 4 channels, 3 channels, and then you have 6. And then suddenly you get cable, you can have 50, and that was big. And then satellite came with Sky TV, and you could have hundreds.
Yep.
And then I remember the first time I visited the US when I was 12 or so in the early 2000s, and I saw that you guys had hundreds of channels. I thought, this is madness. Surely most of it's crap. And it was.
Yeah, back then it was.
Yeah, and it still is today, right? But that's the thing, is that if we are so inundated with content, and both TV and film, it means that our requirement for quality has increased as well, because we're so inundated that you have to be the best of the best to rise to the top. So that the competition is forcing evolutionarily a better set of TV and movies for us, which is great, right? It's great for us.
It's the same comment. Like every time people start talking about, this will be somewhat esoteric or bigger, the time to live. We are in one of the best times possible to live in a first world nation ever. Oh, yeah. Like the convenience, the entertainment, the whatever things we have are amazing. The access to technology, to basic things like food, clothing, heat, energy, all those things is better than it has ever been. And it's interesting, right? Because there are times when, Wayne's commentary condensed, I hear so much noise on social media, especially about how people suffering in their lives and how bad they feel or view the world. And I often wonder if they're not missing the point in so many ways, right? That, hey, yes, it's okay to still be concerned about these issues that are still important, but could you every once in a while please take several steps back and take a little more holistic view on the world, your life, and everything to really get a better gauge as to, are you really suffering, or are you just not living the same semblance of a life that you're seeing other people present on social media?
There's a lot of crap in the world, but in the end, there's also a lot of good, and things have only been getting better statistically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fact, right? Like if you look at the amount of people who have died in poverty year on year across for the past 3 centuries,
it just gets better.
Even in the past 5 years, we've become enormously better, right? Seeing people dying from war. And from disease and squalor and so on. Like there's so anyway, we got massively sidetracked, and let's go back to Picard.
Right.
I just
Picard is an example of the good.
Is definitely an example of the good. So I just wanted to say that to summarize my thoughts on the first episode, which is all that's out just now. It wasn't what I expected, but that's a good thing. All I was excited for was to see. I was kind of open, right? But I was ready to be disappointed, and I wasn't. There were parts that I didn't like. There were parts that I thought that weren't particularly well polished. I'm not going to say this is some perfect show. Honestly, The Witcher hit me better. But because it's Picard, there's a nostalgic element there that I'm like, ooh, I like this a lot. Right, but it was actually still enjoyable. And Kitten enjoyed it as well. She doesn't like, generally speaking, sci-fi, and she isn't particularly enthralled by Star Trek yet. And she enjoyed it. So even if somebody who doesn't get Star Trek enjoys it, it must be fairly good TV, right? In this anecdotal sense. So if you're not sure about it and you like Star Trek, or you're just looking for something to watch that's sci-fi, go check it out. It's pretty damn good. It's good TV.
It really is.
Okay. Last thing I want to mention, and I know we're running out of time already. But I really want to mention this, I'm afraid. I think we're going to probably skip news today. I've been working on this Factorio problem. And,
your AI approach to Factorial.
Yeah, I had a couple of green lights in the past week, and I had one red, but it's all fine. Because I'm not going to South Korea anymore, I'm not putting a paper in there anymore, which is where I was planning to do it. which is fine because I thought to myself, instead there's a conference in Cancun in Mexico.
Oh
That I
no!
don't plan to go to, but I have some colleagues who are going, and I was planning on putting a poster there. And for this conference, it's Gecko for anybody interested, GECCO, evolutionary conference, and a very good one. To get a poster paper in there, you need to put in a paper of 2 pages and describe some results and some initial findings. The problem is that I started writing this with a plan of submitting this for Gecko, and I'm currently on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm on 6 pages right now, and I've barely scratched the surface of describing the problem, not even trying to do a solution yet. Um, and this is not me just writing, text and swaths and swaths of text. There's lots of screenshots showing what I mean. The problem is this is a new. From what I've found 2 papers that are out in the world right now that actually use Factorio, but for completely different problems.
Okay.
So I'm describing it entirely for the problem that I'm working in with optimization. I've also started doing some mathematical modeling to describe the problems. So instead of me just saying, power pole placement is hard, I need to instead explain what exactly is the problem when you take away all the gumph, the graphics, the character, anything else. What is the actual distilled problem for power pole placement? And describing that is you have to do mathematically. It's the only way to truly say this is exactly what this problem is, right? Before you even try to solve it. So far I've fully described the power pole placement problem, as far as I can think anyway. I've not had it peer reviewed by any of my colleagues yet. But I'm describing a good solution for power poles as meeting 3 criteria of satisfaction for all machines in an area, so they actually receive the power. We're assuming the power has been generated elsewhere. Wastage, so you want to minimize that. So if you have 100 poles, but you've technically connected all the one machine to it, then technically you've done your job, right? That's a bad solution. If you can do it with 3, that's the ideal. And then lastly, aesthetics. And that was kind of a hard thing to describe. How do you make a solution look good? I mean, yeah, you could have power poles going diagonally and jumping around the place and getting to the place. And even if you have very few poles being used, that's quite efficient, it's still aesthetically displeasing. And there's actually a real reason for this. We build buildings in the real world in squares and rectangles for a reason. It's efficient. Yes. You can build around them. So I had to describe mathematically that, generally speaking, your X, and you want to have one X row and one Y column that has more than one power pole. That's it, right? So ideally you have it going in lines like this, in corners. And sometimes if you don't manage that, that's fine, but you still want to minimize as many as you can so that it'll try to, do this nice pattern. So that's one of the problems. The other one is I'm trying to do electric mining drill placement, which I thought would be an easy one, but it's actually a bit more difficult to describe than I thought. Because you need to consider power poles, where they're going to go to power these electric miners, and also you need to consider the logistics of exporting the materials mined to some other place. I think I finished defining that now, more or less. But this is me barely scratching the surface, right? I mean, automating Factorio, this is barely, this isn't even an amateur playing for 10 minutes being described, right? There's so much more to it. So this is probably not going to be going to that conference. I'm probably going to have to submit this somewhere else, and maybe there's this project that exists online called Archive, and basically what it is instead of submitting your paper to a journal, which is the normal thing for most sciences, which is like high tier, peer reviewed by experts and panels, and only about 10 to 15% on average get in, right, of papers that are written. Next is conferences, which has about maybe 20 to 40% acceptance rate, which is a bit worse in terms of quality, but it means that more research can be viewed, which is good, and it's better for fast-paced things like computing science. Archive is an online alternative to this, where it's still peer-reviewed, but it's kind of most paper. I don't know what the percentage acceptance rate is, but it's a lot easier to get in, and there's not really a requirement for page length, etc. So if I have a 50-page paper, which is really unusual for conferences or journals, that fully describes this problem, I can probably get in there, and it might still be worthwhile. And I think that'd be not only a fun thing to do, but I think this might actually be useful for kicking off other projects in Factorio, for not just for me, but for other people as well. So I'm sorry that took so long.
No, so it's funny, Ken, because for me, what you're describing is the challenge between providing what you would do in a conference presentation when you have 15 to 20 minutes to the white paper you would write that someone might take hours to consume to really get into the core of the discussion that even I at work have to deal with, not myself specifically, but our team, where we have our scientist who legitimately can write massive volumes of science about something, but the majority of our audience are people who are either users or people who need to invest and convince others to find support for funding of these projects and things, and such that you can't give those people the white paper, right? You have to give them the Reader's Digest, somewhat sales pitchy version of saying this is why it's important, why you should care. But if you want to, here's the reference for everything that you could ever want to learn in your free time.
Yeah, exactly. And the neat thing about this is a side project. I'm doing this in my own time. I've been working nights doing this because I'm enjoying it, right?
That's awesome.
I think it will be good for my career as well eventually. But also, I genuinely think this will have some real world impact because one of the first things I say in this paper is, in fact, let me see if I can find the quote because I think it might be exactly what I'm trying to say because I've actually considered it before. Okay, Factorio is an operational research simulator with a relatively simple application programming interface API, and until now is mostly untapped except for these two references, right? In the world of operational research, it's quite hard. You need to simulate and make models of real-world problems, right? That's effectively what you do. So if you think about employee scheduling or fleet management or airport scheduling systems and stuff, you have to kind of make a model to represent that before you can solve it. Factorio is this huge set of problems that exist that have not even been tapped into yet, that are interlinked, and that's quite rare to have such a well-established model that exists in the world. And my argument with this paper is, if we can use that, then then there's going to be real-world applications from that, right, stemming from this model. So it may not be a direct real-world problem you're solving, but I think from the theory you can come up with some new interesting solutions.
Well, and what you're describing in general is all the various takes there are on answering the problem of AI, artificial intelligence, for how it's applied to any situation. Everything from what we've had in very old school scripted events within games to more modern, more realistic, more situationally aware situations where there's more algorithms running behind it that are able to adapt in what we perceive as a more natural way. Because it's funny is when you're talking to me about Factorio right now, what I'm imagining is some of the videos I've been watching about Star Citizen and the development they've been doing on how they're going to manage their economy and things like that, and how everything is going to interact in their economy, which is essentially creating a world simulator for economy. And how do you do that in real time to affect everything in a universe where humans are interacting for fun? And it's a wonderful problem to see, and I'm really appreciative what I see them doing.
It goes both ways as well. Economies in video games are super interesting. Not just making it is an incredibly tough thing, because managing that kind of system is so tough, because otherwise you'll have a capitalist type system where one person rules all, which is quite likely to happen, especially if you learn how to abuse it quickly and you're the first to do so. But also, there's been dozens, hundreds of studies that I've actually seen seminars on of people looking at the economy of existing games like EVE Online, World of Warcraft.
EVE is the big one, yeah.
Yeah, because they're actually... There are AI out there that is being used on the stock market right now that was based originally in EVE and elsewhere, right?
Yep.
It was a way of saying, look, it actually worked in this economy, maybe it'll work in our one, right?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to see. So I appreciate what you're doing with Factorio. Part of me, the selfish part of me is kind of like, but if we could get you to work for Robert Space Industries somewhere, so that you could help finish working on the AI for Star Citizen.
Entirely different beasts.
It is, but I don't know if you've watched any of their simulations or any of their discussions on it, because they're very transparent in all the work they're doing. I was mesmerized by some of it where I was like, I am glad I am not the one solving this problem and that I will get to benefit for it. But man, watching what you guys are coming across and what you're doing is pretty impressive to me.
I have no intention of working for industry, but I am very happy to partner with anybody if they are so interested as well.
What if they paid you a lot for like 2 years?
I would maybe, okay, to be fair, maybe one day I would go work in industry but only if it was research based as well. I would never want to go into a job that's like, solve this problem and also your research career's dead. Like, no, I want to be a scientist first.
Gotcha.
So
no, that's
money's
fair.
nice, but
that's fair. So no, that's very cool. And I'm going to use that as a segue to say the one other thing I was going to talk about Geek this week was more Star Citizen.
Cool.
Main reason.
Let's go over 10, 15 minutes because I feel like I stole that entire show. So,
well, the things I wanted to share, because it seems like lately, and for anyone who's taken the opportunity to hang out in the VTW Discord, you will see that while we have a lot of people who have been playing like Conan Exiles, I've seen a lot of that with Tabby and his group out there. Still people jumping into various games around here and there. You'll see us in League on occasion, stuff like that. We've had a pretty massive, at least relative to our server, influx of people into Star Citizen in the last couple weeks.
Oh, great.
Where I think I have gone in fact, I could probably look now and see if there's anybody in there in the Star Citizen channel now. Yesterday, in fact, we had to separate out a second Star Citizen channel.
Wow.
Because we had enough people on it. We have 4 people in there right now during the show. And they are likely, because most of what we've been doing in these betas, even though we know it's going to go away at some point, we are learning the game and therefore learning our own economy of building money. We've been testing out various ways to earn money in the game. It's funny because I listed where it's same topic I said last time of Star Citizen with the Blues, because again, the VTW crew is partnered with Asteroid Blues, who are much more this economy-focused group and have bought into this game at a lot of high levels to have some of these ships for trading, for mining, and things like that. And we're taking advantage of that. So we've been doing everything in the game to make money from trading, being massive content between stations and stuff where you get a lot of things into your hold, fly it across space, drop it off and sell it, boom. To mining, going down on the planet surface, everything from individually, where you go into caves or on the surface and hand mine things with your own little multi-tool, to using ships that have mining lasers and ability to extract, to recently, because I've been dying to find an FPS mission in the game, Campo, new gentleman that came up from Blues, Kyle, and myself, went down to do a shooting mission, actual pew-pew FPS mission, where we had to go and clear out an area where drug runners had taken over a place on the planet, and we needed to take out all the drugs, as well as the people in there. So it was my first...
What does that mean, take out all the drugs? Does it mean they must be...
The mission was stated they needed to be destroyed.
In some fashion.
The mission said destroyed. I was commenting that I would have loved to have taken them all out to my ship, gone to one of the illicit planets and sold it all to risk a crime stat, but I don't know if that's fully been implemented in the game yet. It seems like there's a potential there. Because they are trying. I jokingly say Chris Roberts has never heard an idea he said no to, because his scope creep is the worst of anything I've ever seen, but it's also awesome because we're getting all this technology. But we ended up just meleeing most of it after we figured out you could, because bullets are a minimal resource in the game, right? You can only carry so much ammo. And so we ended up just like butt stock hitting all these packages, puffing into big clouds of white powder. And so we're joking on that as well. Like, hopefully you kept keep your helmet on during this.
Yeah.
But in the mission, I got killed very quickly. We took out the first set because the AI is still struggling. They have it on their road path to improve the AI. Several people just stood there and allowed us to kill them. But then there was a second wave that after we had stormed came in from above, and they took me out pretty quick. And it ended up with Campo, our resident FPS master, other than we didn't have Paz with us, who went through and killed everyone else and was able to clear out the area. And I had enough time to spawn back on the spaceport we'd start at, summon my ship, get in it, quantum drive over, which took several minutes to get back, get in there and be able to, as he got stuck in a wall because Alpha, go in there and get the last packages to actually get us to finish the mission, which is great.
Nice.
Well, a lot of what I've been doing personally, which a lot of people talk about, is the starter way of getting into the game and doing stuff, is taking on package missions where you basically just go pick up a box at one place, fly it to somewhere, and drop it off. And you get anywhere from 2 to like 5-ish thousand UEC, which isn't a lot. It's enough that, a couple thousand UEC will allow you to buy parts of a set of armor and such. They usually say you need about 5,000 to outfit yourself with basic armor, a mining laser, and that's kind of it. And a couple med packs and stuff to survive. And then you slowly keep doing more and more to build yourself up. And then really right now, for most single players, mining is where it's at. Even if it's multi-tool kind of mining, because you can go mine a cave for an hour and walk away and make yourself somewhere in the range of 10 to 15,000 UEC. Where if you were to fly package missions, each one of those will take you 20 to 30 minutes overall to fly to a place, pick up the package, fly to the next place, spend a little fuel, refit, get to the place. So efficiency-wise, it seems that mining and transport are the top right now. And there's a risk when you do like mercenary missions and things like that, where you go take out enemy ships, is they may take out your ship. Where mining and stuff has less risk unless you don't know how to mine. Because the nice
if you're
thing
in your basic ship with your insurance policy, that's no problem. But if you're in something else,
it can be an issue. And even then, with the insurance policy, it takes time. Because if you fail, you respawn. You now have to resummon your ship, and by default, it could take anywhere from 7 to 20 minutes to claim it of in-game time, and then having to like hang out for a while, do other stuff, whatever, chat with people as you're waiting for your ship to come back, or you can pay to expedite the insurance claim, which cuts the time down by like, a fifth of what it was, but costs money depending on how much time you're cutting off. So it's all this risk-reward stuff.
I'm not sure. Feel free to dissuade me on this. I'm not sure how I feel about a video game that punishes the player with such long wait times. I mean, I get that you have to have some kind of punishment system.
It's how do you balance the arcadiness? Because if you can just respawn, like in most, FPS shooters, then what's the risk of dying? Unless you're just going for a scoreboard. This being a somewhat simulator, they're balancing it to a limit where we're not just going to let you fly out, do shenanigans, and because you can also impact other players, right? You can go be PvP. We've had people go out and steal other people's ships. We've had people go out and ram ships into other ships as soon as they take off, and basically just grief people. And so if there wasn't some level of negative impact to it, even if it's just time, you would have more of that. And such. And they do have other things like crime stats and stuff like that, but they haven't quite maximized how that's done yet. And so there's still lots of little things. I think 3.9, they're introducing prisons and missions where you'll actually respawn in a prison and have to go through missions to either do your time there or earn your way out faster.
Right.
Things like that.
Okay. That's quite fun.
They're doing this really massive universe for how much simulation they're doing. It's really interesting to follow. But so we've been primarily doing missions to showcase how to make money. As per, for me, what is normal, I wanted to share some of the what we have been doing in game, what we have seen. And so let's see if I can find it again real quick, because apparently when I left my directory sitting there on photos for a while, it decided to default back to something. I think it was when my phone got plugged back in. But let's see. Will it open and not break? Yay. Because it's
Hando said, sorry. Hando said in the chat, space drugs like Dune or space drugs like Minority Report?
Oh, gosh. More like Dune from what I'm aware. They talk about it in some ways like that. All right, let's see if I can actually share this and if it'll show up properly. But, so I like to show screenshots from things I do throughout the verse because it is very, to me, pretty. And in this case, glitchy. Because one of the first things I noted in this screenshot is as I was traveling through one of the spaceports, little or smaller one, this random ship just kind of flew inside the ship or inside the space station, which is one of the AI-controlled ships. I think it's one of the bad guys, the 9 or such. But it was just in the station. And so I actually climbed over it back and forth because it physically was there. It wasn't just visually. I tried to see, but it won't let you open up an enemy's cockpit. Otherwise, I was going to try to pop the AI out and see what I could do with the ship. S&Gs. But the other challenge, because it's an armistice zone, when you get close to cities and controlled areas, it automatically shuts off your weapons. It doesn't allow you to pull out your handguns or anything. It doesn't allow you to shoot. So that there is a safe zone around spawn points, essentially. It's one of the ways they mitigate stuff. But one of the big things we did is one of the guys in the group has access to this massive transport ship called a Caterpillar. And this thing holds so many tonnage of cargo. I don't know if we actually maxed it out while we were running back and forth, but we had essentially 4 of us manning it, where I jumped in that top turret on the front. Another gentleman jumped into the bottom back turret, or I think it was top or back, I forget, the rear turret. And there's also this really cool observation deck on the other side from the cockpit that I think Campo was hanging out in. And this thing, I love, again, I take screenshots left and right because just seeing things in quantum space and stuff, it's so pretty. So pretty. And
are these screenshots or videos you're showing us, by the way?
These are screenshots. These are just screenshots I snapped.
Sure. I was like, it's not moving.
Yeah, no, this is just screenshots I snapped during the game where, as we're going around, because I was in a turret, I went to the external view of the ship and just hit print screen. And I spent time, because you're in quantum, so it takes several minutes to move places. You're just hanging out. I could run through the ship, but because it's alpha, we also joke that you don't want to physically move too much through a ship and not be attached to the ship in some way through a seat. Because we've also seen, and this happened, Earth did this to me. He was riding in the back of my 300i when we were trying to do some stuff later, that my smaller ship that's really got one seat, but it also has a bed, so I can go out places and respawn from it. But it's got a beautiful, it's one you'll see my white ship that you'll see whenever I'm in it, has a beautiful sunroof or moonroof through the whole thing. At some point, he just was no longer in my ship and was in the middle of space for a moment and then died and respawned at a station. So there's some times where the containers, as they talk about the individual sizes of universe to planet or system to station space or whatever like area within space to your personal, like your ship itself to your personal space, are all containers within each other and interact in some relational kind of way. It's how they manage the massive scale of the universe. Is they're all containers talking to each other with some level of abstraction, so that the universe itself isn't really manning everything at once. It's doing little instances of it. And it's beautiful because as soon as a human is out of a space, and they talk about this in the economy, it's all numbers. And as soon as you're no longer visually there, it's just running the simulation of the numbers behind the scene. So it's not having to render, and it just cuts it down to basically stats page, which helps with the efficiency significantly, right? Throughout everything.
If you're trying to model, 10 billion square miles, or if you're trying to say, there are X coordinate, Y coordinate, Z coordinate, this.
Yep.
So much
well,
easier,
and what they actually do to make it even easier than that is they give an X, Y, Z coordinate, and they put a percentage possibility of something spawning in that space when someone hits it. So even then, they're not keeping like pirates there or good guys or whatever there. It's a percentage of anything based on the status of the universe.
That's effectively what happens in real life anyway, right?
Yeah, but that's how they...
If you're in the unknown and you don't know where stuff is, there's a percentage chance of you running into it, right?
And so it's just spawning based on those percentages of things. So again, what they're doing behind the scenes is so brilliant for how they're doing. Because we're getting these things where, now granted, right now each server is 50 people per server, but they're already testing with expanding it now that they've done server-based containers and optimization. Their goal is to merge all the servers into one instance. And so that everyone playing Star Citizen will be in the exact same universe. And it'll just manage you as you bounce through. That's their goal. But this Caterpillar is just this massive storage thing, right? It's a transport. It's really cool, too, because it's showing some of the atmospheric effects. It's so much good thing. That it just holds a mass amount of cargo, and you can run through the inside cargo area. And when you load it up by purchasing some stuff, cargo will appear in it. They don't have like the mechanism where it's so real that somebody actually loads it out and loads it in or something. It just kind of appears. But when you see it, it just massively fills up this cargo hold with boxes throughout it. And so you can see it in there. But we were basically pooling all of our funds together. And we actually did a thing where we created a Google Doc to track it about how much we each invested into our buying of raw material at each spot to then transport and sell. So that based on what percentage of the overall cargo we invested in was how much profit we each got. And so we're essentially investing in a transportation setup. And we did several runs back and forth, and we came up with a spreadsheet on the fly. Because we're like, hey, there's 4 of us. How are we going to split this? Well, I've got 50K, or the main guy who was running it had started with like 80K he put in. Paz, I think, put in like 55 or something K. I put in like 30K. Campo put in like, this was Kyle in this case, put in like 10 or 15K. But there's whatever it was, there was varieties throughout. Campo actually wasn't this one. And so all these ones where we just had different amounts of money. And so as we continue to go through the overall back and forth, we kept updating the spreadsheet to show like, all right, now that we made this much profit off this run, I'm reinvesting it into the next run. So now it exponentially basically kept, or not, but percentage-wise kept growing. And so then we cashed out, and what it was is the profit we made in this time frame, we ran for about an hour or so, and each of us, or like I made, what was my final number? Something like, what did I make? Like 20K, 30K? 1,000 off it in that hour, which for me is a heck of a good one off a quick run. I know top guy who had invested most of his ship basically earned like 80K or something in that time frame. It's all based on how much. Right. There's runs that you apparently can do where if you invest like 5 million into it, you can turn a profit of 800,000 in a single run.
But then if something goes wrong, you can lose, right?
You are risking it. Yes, if something breaks, blows up, if someone attacks your ship, all those things, which is why I was manning turrets and stuff. But we talked about the potential there is if you have a whole team of people investing in transport and you're going distances where you're getting large amounts of rare material, There's no reason you couldn't buy out all the material in an area, send 2 or 3 ships and cargoes to do a transport ship, where you're potentially carrying like $20 or $30 million of cargo, with that one run going to net you a couple $1 million in profit.
Right.
And at that point, it's worth maybe investing 10 people in a group who all now could make, $100K each for this run, to both man the turrets in the actual ships, bring their own ships as support ships to fly along with. And so it just opened up this whole level of kind of organic multiplayer that I've not really experienced in any game. And some of the excitement that we're running into with it, of what can we do in this game and how would we play together. And so it's just neat. I have enjoyed the heck out of this thing. Even something as simple as just being part of a transport mission, where we weren't really doing much other than talking together, managing things, little things like when we land at some of these bigger planets, they have kind of restricted space into where you're fitting into your like underground landing area. This is a big ship, and so he'd like nose in, and we'd all get to third person because he's in the cockpit, which is off to the side, so it's not even like the nose of it. So he's having to judge how this big ship is fitting, and we'd all talk him through it, like, nope, go forward a little more, forward more, pitch up, this and that. So it actually became this whole team effort of best landing places, taking off, all these things. And I will give credit. I think his name is Dastrock, who's actually playing right now, is a great pilot. He really did do a phenomenal job. Also, I take these screenshots just because I think they're beautiful. We're over ArcCorp, I think, this planet, which is one of these planets that's just a whole surface of a city. The whole city is a surface. The light coming up with the haze and stuff, you just see all these little details of the shadows and stuff on the planet.
That's
going
cool.
over.
That's pretty.
It just boggles my brain, the kind of things you can do in this game so far, even though it's an alpha. And I'm not trying to tell people to go buy it, right? Because it's expensive. Heck, they're doing a Chinese lunar sale right now for some ships. To buy, it's not the Miner or the Mole right now. They have another one, the Carrack or whatever, which is a bigger ship. Real income money to buy it right now, because they don't do lifetime things anymore. For most, you have to get like special sales. Most is like 6 months insurance. $500 real money on sale to buy this access to the game and this one ship in the game. And I very specifically tell you, some of the members I've been playing with and people that have lots of ships, where people have invested thousands of dollars in this game. And so it's this weird thing, right? It's paying for that excitement. It's the hyper example of what we were talking about earlier about space engineers. Like, I bought in for $50, like $55 in the Kickstarter, because I love everything Chris Roberts has done back in the day with the Wing Commander series and stuff like that. So I'm investing in that possibility of him doing an independent developer doing something. It just happened to explode in a way I don't think anybody was ready for at all. They've made over $250 million. I still don't tell people buy in. You can still get in for like that $50 or something with a regular everyday ship, and there's guides on there to go in there and get into mining and stuff on your own. How much investment it takes, about $40K right now, or $45K, to get into like a Prospector, which is an individual mining ship to rent for a 24-hour period of in-game credit. But that can allow you to then make several $100K in a day. And so there's means you can do it to it. Like we've had things where, man, does time fly. You know those games you play where you look up and it's like, where did the 4 or 5 hours go?
Dude, I've played a lot of Factorio, and I know all about
that.
Right?
Yeah, you fully understand, right? This is one of those games, and we're playing with each other, and we're looking at like, holy cow, has it already been 2-3 hours? And we've just done this much mining or something like that. But we're also really happy when we've succeeded in getting this. We actually did another one where I was showing the mining ship a little bit there back in the mole. We brought up 2, because thank God the Blues have invested like they have. So they were able to spawn 2 of these mole ships, miners, and we split into 2 teams with a pilot and basically 1 or 2 miners each, and went to the same planet together, so we're kind of supporting each other, and then we broke off from each other to scan the planet and hit all of these different areas to mine. And it was epic. We spent like an hour mining, each of us, as groups. And I was with Paz and Earthweaver, and we just went our way. They were in. That's when we split up the separate channel. Because then you have to like actively mine and say, all right, we're focusing on this rock. To break it apart, we have to fracture it in small enough pieces before we can suck it up with our tractor beam. And so you break it apart, but to break it apart, you don't just point at it. You have to look at the structure of the rock, scan it to see has it got the materials you want in it,
Neat.
and the percentage of the materials to say, is it worth me going through at this time based on the current market? And then as you're going through that, then once you decide, yep, we're going to hit this rock, you have these multiple lasers you kick on in fracture mode to break it apart from a massive rock to under at least 300 kilograms, I think, before you can start slurping it. That you have to adjust the power on your mining lasers to get up to a point where it starts fracturing. And if you go too fast, too high, it'll explode the rock, which can blow up your ship.
Why is life so linear? I wish that I could put I wish I had 5 lives and just dedicate one of them to playing this game.
Oh
right
god,
now and
every
just,
game, right?
Enjoy that. While I can also do other stuff at the same time. But I not only the monetary investment, but the time investment. I don't want to play a game that I have to work in right now. That's something I really enjoyed in undergrad and during high school. I loved that kind of thing because I had the time to sink. So when I played World of Warcraft and I'd play the market and I'd make loads of money, I could do that, right? But now I'm the idea of doing that. Yeah, I can maybe make some of that money, but then I'd have no time to actually play the game.
Well, so the beauty of it,
enjoy that.
Normally, because when I played Eve, right, the little bit I played Eve, I couldn't imagine mining. In Eve, I was like, that is the dullest thing. Why would I ever do this? Because this game, they have found ways to make everything you do active. Again, mining isn't just point and shoot. You have to manage your lasers, and we're having to communicate to say, all right, I'm going up to 100%, bring yours up to 20. And we're watching the progress of the mining thing happen. And you have to get to the sweet spot. And every rock's different, and some take a lot more power. Some, once you start going up, will start heating up real fast, so you have to back off real fast. It's very interactive and you have to be aware of what you're doing. And so as you're going through it, you can't just be lazy about it. If you do, there's consequence to action. If you're hand mining in a cave, you can blow up a rock that will take out your legs and kill you. So there's risk-reward to everything. Well, same thing with these big ships. We've done it in such a way that we've blown up a ship because we blew up a rock too aggressively. And so
Are there any safe money making things can you go work in an office?
Well, you can in a way play the market, right? But everything has some risk, right? So the trading and package delivery is safer. Some might run into pirates or other things along the way, and some you can just run away from. But that's the thing. There's always an ebb and flow to everything in the universe. And they were talking about in the way that not just the economy, but the interaction of things they talk about is as more money is being moved through parts of the universe, more pirates will start to spawn because it's more attractive. As more pirates start to spawn, more AI police forces will start to spawn. In reference to all of this, NPCs will start posting different contracts for different value based on the ebb and flow of the need of resource. Oh, dude! There was an hour thing about the economy and the AI and what it's doing, just about managing where things spawn and how much things cost.
Cool.
And so it's weird. It's exciting, and it sucks because I am getting pulled into the excitement. We aren't even close to this game releasing. If we are lucky, the single-player crafted experience that they're making called Squadron 42 will come out this year. Maybe. By December. Maybe. If we're lucky. The likelihood? Low, but we'll see. The persistent universe? No idea. And we know that every major patch update, we're going to lose everything we started with. We were on 3.8, and 3.81 just came out, and all of our money reset. All the ships you had purchased in-game reset. All of that, right? Because it is a beta. But so far, that hasn't deterred us because we're still having... This has been an uptick for people who are interested in the game to actually get together and play that we've never seen. And so the guys that are in there right now, Preacher, who's one of our main guys I've known at work, who's drawn the blues into us and such, Dashdrock, who's one of the blues, and then Paz, and Campo, who are my FPS guys, right? We're all getting in this game together and just loving it. Even through the glitches. We're even in the glitches where we're laughing yep, this is alpha. That happened. Oh boy. Right.
I think it's because you're all going in with that understanding that it's already in this.
Oh, we remind each other.
Game, right?
Yeah, we remind each other. And there's times it's been frustrating. We'll be in the middle of something and someone dies for no good reason. And the time it would take for them to get back is such that they're like, and I'm done for today. We had that with one of the mining ships when it was Kyle, myself, and I want to say Spinbot was with us. And it did a weird thing. Kyle, younger guy, really enthusiastic, jumped into the passenger seat as I was in the pilot seat of the Mole. We're coming down the planet, and Spin walked in between us. Because nice thing is some of these bigger ships, the cockpits are so big, you can have someone just walk between the main seats and looking out the window. Awesome. Gorgeous. It's surprisingly satisfying. But there was a glitch or an AI thing or some kind of spatially thing that then Kyle decided to get out of the chair, and it's a chair that backs up, turns, and puts his character then in that physical space that happened to already be occupied by Spin. Instead of it pushing Spin off that space, he got insta-killed. And he died, fell onto the ground, and was dead, right? And we're just like, what do you do? Because unfortunately, unless you take off in the ship and like log out in one of the beds that a ship has. The next time you spawn is the last station you were basically on that you landed appropriately. And so the challenge was we had met his thing, and he had actually bypassed where he would have kind of been closer to come straight to where we were mining. So when he ended up respawning, it was some 40 million kilometers away, which takes a solid like 15 minutes of quantum time to get to. And so he was like, nah, I'm done. I'm not going back to you guys. Have fun. And so it's like, it's just back and forth. And actually, Kuro, it would. He's saying, would it run on my laptop with a 1050 Ti? Yes, it's running at 60 frames per second in most cases on my 1080. And I have everything maxed, and I'm running it in windowed mode on my desktop. It's so weird, but it would actually work well. You do want some memory. Yeah, you do want some memory, but they're still optimizing it. It still gets better. It jumps anywhere from like 30 frames per second on mine to 60. Some people I know are doing better. I know people who are running massive cards, 2080s and stuff, and getting performance. It's all over the place, but it's at a playable state now. It is stable enough to actually be good. Last photo I'm showing here, I think it's among the last, is actually myself in my Origin 300. Kyle in his, I want to say his was a 315, I think, or something. It's another Origin, same series, just different kit. And then Earth is the shadowy ship above, and I want to say his Aurora? I haven't gotten to the point where I can mention every single one of the ships offhand equally. But we were kind of messing around, and prior to this, there was a race mission we were trying to do. Didn't realize we had to bring our own cars. But yeah, so it's kind of weird, just some last screenshots I was taking. I was trying to show off. I didn't get all the sparks, but when Earth fell out of my ship, it hurt my ship a lot. But, yeah, it was sparking and smoking. I was like, dang it, Earth! Why you sabotage my ship? I was accusing him of dropping a grenade in my ship or something. And then he suddenly was out and back at the station. So anyhow, that's my update on Star Citizen. I'm enjoying it. I've been streaming it more, and I've actually been encouraged because I've had people talk recently about my streaming more of both VR things like Beat Saber and stuff. I plan to do some more of that, and also Star Citizen. Those two things I've actually got a lot of response from people saying thank you because they've been very curious. So if you are interested, by all means, message me wherever. I will happily continue doing it. I like the feedback, but it's just been my experience of what I've been gaming. All right. That's my sorry, it took me 20 minutes, but
no, super appreciate that. I think it's really interesting, and since it's something I have no plans to ever get into, it's really nice to. But I am still interested in it. It's great to see every week and see the updates and what your thoughts are, and it'll be interesting to see if this is something that lasts long term and how long it does last for, and how much you play it, right?
Yep.
Because I'm sure the frustrations of alpha will be a continuing problem, as will the fact that. It takes a lot of time to play this game, and at some point you might not feel that's worth it. And I'll be
the glossy veneer of the experience may wear off. We'll see. It's been something that I think you've heard me say before. I've always been, what the heck, I need something to bring us all together into gaming again, where everyone plays their own games. But this has been one of the more recent where, in fact, Earth just jumped into the Star Citizen channel, that we have like 5 people in there right now gaming, which I haven't had randomly in the Discord for so long. That it's neat to me to see one game kind of starting to get people's interest in such a way to pull everyone together. And I love that you can kind of do whatever you want in the world. It'll expand. Maybe it'll be good, bad, I don't know. Right now, it's our current hotness. All right. With that, I think we need to end things. And yes, there are new stuff, but we missed it because we wanted to share with us, or with all of you, our lives, what we've been doing. We'll make sure to get some on here in the future because I do have a few stories I want to make sure to throw out there because... hey, a lot of things happen. As well as we always are appreciative if you guys clue us into something, we'll prioritize it. If there's a new story you're aware of that you want us to talk about, we will bring it up first thing because that is important to us. We want to make sure we cover what you guys are interested in. But with that, I'm going to let Ken get us out of here so we can give you back the rest of your guys' day. You have been listening to ShowX live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate it. You can check us out on twitter.com/VtWShowX, twitter.com/.dead, and twitter.com/drkenread. And you can check out the show, Mr. Wayne and myself, on Twitter there. You can search for us on Facebook, search for ShowX, and you'll find us there. You can find us on Instagram, which is the new one the past week, by searching for instagram.com/VtWShowX. You can check us out on YouTube, Versus the World Videos. Subscribe to us there and like our videos. We very much appreciate it. You can talk about the most recent videos we've put up and shows we've done on reddit.com/r/ShowX. There's auto-posted every week. We do a show, and all of Wayne's uses of the ShowX Twitch account as well is all posted there.
So go comment there if you want to start a discussion. That's always appreciated. We do enjoy chatting there and try to encourage that. If you want to help us in other forms, you can do so by going to patreon.com/showx and give us a minimum of $1 per month. That's $12 a year. That is a couple of coffees. And that money goes straight into software, hardware, and show-only related stuff. We do not use it for anything else, even though I say it's for the same price of a couple of beers or coffee. We don't use it for that. But most of all, share us, like our stuff, and we appreciate all that so very much. Like us and become our friends elsewhere as well. Goodreads and such, we always like to see our friends and like that too. So thank you very much for hosting the show, sir. We very much appreciate it, and we hope you all enjoy this extended version of ShowX today.
Yes, thank you all for joining us. We love to see you every week, and feel free to interact with us in between each show because we're here and we're geeks and we know you are too. But with that, we're out of here. Have a good day and have a good start to this next week for you. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you next zombie.